In progress.
Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, December 2nd at noon. It's Tuesday, December 2nd at noon, and we'll call our meeting to order. And we'll begin with a roll call, starting with Councillor Bogdan,
Becky Bogdan, Patrice McKay,
Gary Garrett,
Rachel Whipple,
George Handley, and Craig Christensen.
I believe we have Craig Christensen online today.
Yes. I'm here as well. Can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Craig?
I can hear you. Can you not hear me?
He's here,
Okay.
and said he's speaking, but we can't hear him.
Okay. All right. We know you're online, Councillor Christensen. Thank you.
All right. Well,
And Travis
are you
Hoban
able
is
to-
excused, but I believe he'll join us shortly. First, we have on the agenda the approval of the following minutes: the November 11th work meeting, the November 11th council meeting, and the November 18th Board of Canvassers meeting. Are there any requested changes or any objections to these minutes? If not, I'll declare the minutes approved by unanimous consent. Next, we have a presentation regarding a North Park neighborhood plan that a student group from Brigham Young University has been working on as part of a project. This will be presented to us, introduced to us by City Planner Deanne Morgan, and then we have the students here as well. Deanne, welcome, and welcome to the students.
Hello, my name is Deanne Morgan. I'm a new planner here at Provo City. It's nice to meet you. I'm also joined by planners Hannah Sossel and Jessica Donahue. We've been working with a group of BYU students this semester led by Professor Jamin Rowan, who is also a former Provo City Planning Commissioner. Each fall, his class conducts a student project to look at a different neighborhood in the city and learn about the process of writing a neighborhood plan. This year, they have been looking at the North Park neighborhood, which stretches from University Avenue on the east to the River Trail on the west, and from Bulldog Boulevard to 500 North. It encompasses also the Provo Recreation Center, the Utah Valley Hospital, and the future site of the BYU Medical School. To be clear, the city does not have intentions to write or adopt a neighborhood plan for North Park in the near future. However, we see this as a great opportunity to see this part of the city from a new perspective and get some fresh new ideas, as well as to hear some of the feedback that students have received from the community in their presentation at the District 4 neighborhood meeting as to what residents are concerned about and the things that they would like to see and support. This is a very dynamic area of the city, and it's going to be undergoing a lot of changes over the next few years. The planning department's been very impressed with the students and the work that they've done and the ideas that they have come up with. And we're excited to hear what they have to present. So please welcome them, and we hope you enjoy their presentation.
All right, thanks for having us today. We're super excited. Also really sad our project is now coming to an end, but we've learned so much about Provo and how amazing it is, and we just want to see it continue to thrive. So we're excited. Had an opportunity to present to the Planning Commission as well as on November 19th at the District 4 meeting. In that meeting, we were able to survey like 20 different residents and get their feedback and opinion on things. So that would be kind of sprinkled throughout this presentation. You guys can see the response on different things. And then we just wanted to give a huge shout out to the city planners, Hannah, Deanna, Jessica, as well as some of the co-chairs of the North Park neighborhood, Jocelyn and Eric Chase. So yeah, let's get into it. It's the arrow. It's that arrow, right? Oh, the one that was ripped off. Right there. Okay, yes, so this is just a quick refresh of the area of North Park. It takes in the river and then down 500 north of University Avenue and then across Cougar Boulevard. And then this is super exciting area because there's so many huge developments going on. It takes in the river as well as the rec center, which brings a really active element to the community. And then looking forward to seeing the new Peabody Medical School be replaced by it will replace the Provo High School. And that along with the Utah Valley Hospital will create just a healthcare hub, a healthcare powerhouse. So super exciting there, lots of active, young, youthful energy within this community. And we're excited to see it continue to thrive.
Okay, so our first, oh gosh, you're like that. So our first proposal for the North Park Neighborhood Plan is to lower minimum lot sizes. I know that this is already being implemented, but we just encourage kind of more widespread application. So we took a survey of residents at the neighborhood District 4 meeting, and we found that a key neighborhood characteristic was housing affordability, especially for the working class. We also found a survey from the Institute. Gosh, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think. We also found a survey from the Institute for Family Studies and found that the most important factors for family homeowners were safety, location like nearby to schools, as well as walkability. And also, this survey also conclusively shows that lot sizes were not a significant factor, but single family homes were important to them. So we know that minimum lot size is, as I said, it's already in use, but we asked to consider more widespread application and lowering required sizing for parking minimums as well. So this map highlights potential areas for application in the North Park neighborhood. And these are just areas that are already single family zoning that could use the benefit from this.
Okay, I guess I forgot to kind of go into maybe some challenges that this area is facing, just keeping it more affordable and also with a really active community, we want to be sure that things are safe, like the bikers and the pedestrians feel really safe. That was a concern. But to increase some of the affordability, we kind of dove into some research about density bonuses and how these could be really beneficial for this area. Those three little boxes right there, these are just examples of apartment complexes that could be leveraged to have more bedrooms in them. And it was cool looking at some of the research that the Institute for Family Studies did on this. Just saying how the more accessibility you have for families to buy, the cheaper things will be for them. So kind of a cool concept just to kind of implement into this area, and just bring more family and youthful energy. So yeah.
So our next proposal is dissolving the RC zone. Or dissolving the residential conservation zone, or the RC zone, excuse me, to match current usage. So some history about the RC zone. It was created in 2002 with the purpose to control neighborhood growth, and it did accomplish that purpose. But we discussed the zone with the neighborhood reps Jocelyn and Eric, and we found that the RC zone is acting as a hindrance to reinvestment in the neighborhood. So the RC zone is currently acting as a barrier to upkeeping property, leading to less motivation to improve their properties and some areas that are considered more blighted. So we recommend rezoning the areas in a way that matches the current usage, and encourages reinvestment into the neighborhood by matching the zones with the current properties.
Okay, perfect. So in our survey of the North Park residents, we asked them what was important about the character of North Park, and a lot of them responded a sense of community, connectivity, walkability. things like a hometown kind of feeling. So we really wanted to focus on connectivity and active transport within the North Park neighborhood, maintain that feeling. The North Park neighborhood does have three really big streets. It has University Avenue, Freedom, and then 500, which have a lot of car traffic. So we have proposed some bike boulevards to kind of divert bike traffic away from that and also divert car traffic away from the more residential areas. So we have 100 West and 300 West. And just before I get into this, a bike boulevard, just to give a little summary, is any street that prioritizes bike traffic over car traffic. So they usually have slower speed limits, less traffic, more infrastructure to protect bicyclists. And so the way that we propose going about bike boulevards is doing bike sharrows, which you might be familiar with the bike sharrow on 200 East, just off the BYU campus. So essentially the bikers can take the full lane, and it's not saying there aren't cars there, but bikes just have equal opportunity to take up the whole road. And they're usually placed in areas that already have lower car traffic. So that's why 100 West and 300 West seem like good options for this. They're very strategic decisions. 100 West is right here between University Avenue and Freedom. So like I said, it would take away that bicycle traffic from those busier streets and make it a lot safer for them. And it would be a stretch of about 4 blocks going from 500 North to the new medical school. So this goes through a residential zone. So just help those residents kind of be able to safely travel to the medical school or from the medical school. Something important is also that this is in the station area plan, a proposed bike boulevard on 100 West, because they are also wanting to divert bike traffic away from University Avenue. So that is 100 West, and then 300 West would be about 7 blocks, and we were really excited about this proposal because it connects the recreation center to Cougar Boulevard and that protected bike lane, which would then connect it to kind of this greater bicycle network in Provo, specifically to the river trail. So we really want to connect those two recreation hubs. So it would start beneath the recreation center, go around it. There's like a nice little trail right there, and then it would just go right up 300 West. This is also in the bicycle master plan as a proposed bike boulevard south of 500 North. So it would just be a continuation of that. And then also in the transportation master plan for Provo, 300 West has actually been listed as a active transportation priority project. So there are some plans already in the city that support kind of establishing more bikeability in these streets specifically. And also we want to draw attention to the fact that there's a lot of east-west connectivity in North Park, but we want to increase the north-south a little bit more. We had some residents bring up that concern.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, please.
So what is is that a proposed sharrow going east-west right there? Yeah,
This one?
yeah.
This one isn't proposed. We have yeah, so this one isn't proposed. It already exists, or maybe it is proposed. Sorry, we have a key on the presentation that when I'm done speaking, I can find it and answer that question afterwards. Sorry. Okay, and then these are some of the results from the poll that we took. So this is from the District 4 meeting. So the most popular answer was yes to bike shares on both 100 West and 300 West. But we did also want to bring attention to that this is all of District 4. So like this green section is a lot of people that aren't living in North Park, and all of the North Park residents that did participate in the survey, all of them voted yes to both 100 West and 300 West, so it was unanimous. And obviously all residents' opinions are important on the matter, but we want to give a little more priority to North Park, seeing as it's their neighborhood, their homes, their families. And then this is a poll about the intersection that feels safe in the North Park neighborhood. So we're going to focus on 500 North and 100 West and 500 North and 600 West in a later slide. So yeah, we'll get to that in just a few slides.
Mentioned earlier in the presentation was that on the west side of North Park neighborhood is the Provo River Trail. And when we talked with residents, and from our own research, we noticed that the Provo River Trail isn't as utilized as maybe it could be. And So we wanted to propose that there different built infrastructure be added to parks along the river trail so that it could hold social events, community events like 5Ks or like an amphitheater where like there could be bands that play to again like really embrace the beauty of the Pro River and really kind of celebrate that it's in the North Park neighborhood and makes it a unique aspect of the neighborhood. And when we surveyed residents, the majority said that they wanted to see some kind of more built infrastructure, like more seating and amphitheater, exercise equipment that again really could draw people to the river more and make it more usable. And continuing with the river trail, we in our research we found that there was only one current access point within the North Park neighborhood to the river trail. And when we read the river and lakeshore plan, we noticed that there were goals to create more access points. And again, the North Park residents or District 4 residents, the majority stated that they wanted to see more access points. And again, this would just help to see the river trail be utilized more and really embrace the uniqueness of this aspect of the North Park neighborhood. And so one specific access point that we wanted to propose and focus on was the access point, or we wanted to create an access point on Columbia Lane. And as was mentioned, there is a protected bike lane on Cougar Boulevard. And so we wanted to propose that be extended to the river trail. So just extended a little bit onto Columbia Lane so that there's more easy access for active transportation. And then the picture on the right shows kind of something that maybe this access point could look like. You know, a bigger sign that really points out the Provo River Trail and celebrates that this is in the North Park neighborhood.
Okay, and so I had previously mentioned that we wanted to also focus on crosswalks. So there were 3 specific crosswalks that we wanted to reevaluate and just update more than anything. So 500 North and 100 West is a crosswalk that's about 2 blocks north of Smith's. 500 North has a lot of car traffic that goes very fast, and there's no crosswalk there. Sorry, I misspoke. Yeah, there is no crosswalk there. So a crosswalk would need to be built, is what we're proposing. So we've had residents actually approach us and say that that is one intersection that feels very dangerous for pedestrians and for bicyclists. So we were proposing a high intensity crosswalk beacon, if you're familiar with those. So it is a crosswalk, it'd just be a striped crosswalk painted nicely, and then you'd have these signs with the yield to pedestrians and to bikers, and that has an activated light. There's some surrounding Pioneer Park, and there's also some south of BYU campus. So that's actually the kind of crosswalk that we want to propose for all of these locations. Starting with 500 North and 100 West, just so those cars that are going on 500 North know to slow down when there's pedestrians waiting. Yeah.
Just because this is a class, do you guys know that there's a code and warrants that need to be followed in order to put these in?
Yes, we were aware, but I mean, obviously logistics are something that would need to be looked into a little bit further by the city if this would ever get adopted.
Right,
yeah.
right. It has to meet warrants in order to look funding too, right? And so I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that we can't just go ahead and put these in.
Yeah.
There's actually a huge process and it might not even the criteria.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's something looking for. This is just once again a proposition. So if it met that criteria, we would love to have that, but if not, we'd still like to update these crosswalks. And 500 North and 600 West is the primary access point right now for Timpanogos Elementary School. And we are aware that Timpanogos Elementary School, it's been proposed that it move to the Dixon campus. So, we had heard that the Timpanogos Elementary School was going to be converted to a career and technical education facility. Instead, that is the most recent update that we've received on that. So regardless of whether that location gets moved or not, it would still be a campus to our knowledge. So we would like to increase the safety surrounding that crosswalk. And 700 West and 800 North is a crosswalk that residents had brought up to us that they felt needed to be updated. They felt it was unsafe as they were crossing 800. So that would be repainted and get new signs. And that's basically all regarding the crosswalks. Our last proposed item is we wanted to think of something that was fun and kind of unique to the North Park neighborhood. So like obviously the North Park neighborhood is close to BYU, and then the new medical school will be within the neighborhood. And so we came up with this idea to have a kind of cougar theme for signage within the neighborhood, just to again embrace the closeness to BYU. And obviously we're BYU students, and so we are biased with this sounds fun to us, but the residents also, the majority said that, you know, that is something that they would be interested in as well.
It would be cute, but whatever.
So, yeah.
Is that actually the wording that you put in the survey?
No, I think there were some, everybody
makes
saw it.
sense.
Yeah, so, but those are all the things we wanted to talk about today. But we would love questions or any feedback from you guys.
I'll just say, the connectivity on Third West going north through around the rec center is really very much needed. I'm so glad that we're thinking about getting as much bike traffic off of Freedom and off of University as possible, because those are very dangerous roads, especially. Well, I think especially Freedom, because there's not even a bike stripe there. So then there's not enough room. And as a user of Third West up to the rec center, the rec center just creates this big blockage. So it's very awkward to get around it. And I think just that connectivity makes a lot of sense. And the reason I was also asking about that east-west connector is, for the same reasons. I like the idea of the access to the river trail, but I didn't know what that, so I don't know if you looked that up.
Yeah, I have it right here.
Okay.
So it's a private share according to this legend.
It's a what?
A private share.
What does that mean?
No. Oh, so there's a hospital parking lot.
Oh, okay. So it would have to have their permission or something? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think you've identified those, that connectivity, at least for biking perspective, is really needed, especially with the medical school coming in. I think the access that people will want to have from Cougar Boulevard downtown, right? Just that stretch right there is so vital for people to be able to walk or bike for lunch during their lunch breaks or whatever. If there's easy connectivity, that just reduces a lot of public safety risk and reduces traffic if we can make it more accessible. So I love it. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
As someone who's bike.
Go to the bike and introduce yourself.
Jamin Rowan. As someone who's biked that area, I mean, our thoughts were is that they outlined kind of having this like signage that would like skirt you around the, because there is that path back there. But do you have any other like ideas as someone who rides over there of how to kind of connect people kind of through the rec center to that other side where they have to pick up 300 West again? Or
Well, either way, I think, yeah, it doesn't have the signage. It's possible, although it took me, just several attempts when I first tried it. I was like, okay, how do I get around here exactly? So there is a way, there are ways around it, but I think if there was very clear signage, maybe striping the path a little bit so that there was an indication that this is the way to go. If you're, I mean, I don't know if that requires a multi-use sidewalk. Is that what you're thinking? To get around the rec
Yeah.
center?
Yeah.
So to just go, is that, yeah,
I just get through the parking lot of the rec center.
yeah, and then it's not clear where you go from there.
Yeah,
That's the issue.
you have to already know.
Right, you have to know, you have to be like sort of in some secret knowledge. And but this is the trigger would be if it shows up when I do a Google Maps indicator and say, I want to go by bike from the hospital to downtown. And if it shows me the route, then I'll take it, you know, that's another issue.
Yeah. I like the idea of an archway or something designating the access points to the river trail from the surface streets. I think that's really fun, and incorporating that with wayfinding for the bike routes in general would be really good. The concerns that I have on both Third and First West are just crossing 800 North, because that can be hairy sometimes when you're on a bike. I hate doing that. But I'm also a person who will just take a lane on Freedom Boulevard.
Well, you also have a battery, which
Yeah.
which helps, right?
It does
Yeah,
help.
Somebody without the battery, it's a lot.
Do it on the real bike too.
Yeah.
Although I
Great.
to get off of that street. Sometimes I'm just like going and I'm like, crap, here I am on the street again. So my question was more about the decreased lot sizes. You identified only a small portion of the neighborhood where you thought that would be useful, but those looked like it was fairly built out already. So if we were to decrease the requirement for the lot sizes in that area, do you actually see that we could squeeze more little houses in there? Because there were some areas that looked like you had larger lots than the one that were pointed out on your slide.
Are you referring to the density bonuses slide?
No, the one before that,
Oh, that was a lot.
The minimum lot.
minimum lot sizes.
Maybe go back to that slide.
I'm not an expert in that. But so the way that we just kind of selected those specifically was, I did a GIS. I just pulled out like, the zoning. Yeah, that's okay. So I pulled out like the specific zones that were already labeled as, single family. So if we were to maybe implement some of those different changes that we talked about with like the RC rezoning as well, we could probably build out those instead, because yeah, it does look like there are a lot of different houses in here. That was kind of my thought though. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be a really useful thing. I was just curious why you only identified this little tiny area for that potential solution.
Yeah, so that was the reason, is just like it was already zoned as single use, and with GIS I just kind of like found the areas that were only in the North Park neighborhood, and then I selected those. So this would definitely be better if it were implemented and kind of throughout the neighborhood as well.
Those lot sizes are quite small already, but they
Yeah.
also said broader application
Right.
of that.
Isn't that the same neighborhood where several years ago, Catrice and I think Gary, you guys, we went on a tour of one of those old houses just south of the rec center. Neighborhood was wanting to explore the possibility of like slight densification,
That's Tim.
open space.
And that's a little farther south,
Yeah.
but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of, like they were empty and they did have a lot of extra room, but that's getting done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're very excited about
Yeah, I mean, some of those neighborhoods, the lot is bigger than the house, like the house is on the smaller side, so it's a nice opportunity for little infill.
And then my last question is, you were talking about getting rid of the RC zoning and rezoning it just to reflect the current use, which I think would help eliminate a lot of confusion for whether or not a use is okay. You know, you no longer have this question about a non-conforming compliant use because it's reflecting. But did you also look at the future land use map when you were considering that? Like, would it make more sense in some of those cases to rezone to something other than the current use in order to encourage people to look at redeveloping?
That's an excellent question. I think that's something that we would want to look further into, definitely.
Yeah.
Because we were focusing more on like what is already there,
Mhm.
and less on future.
Yeah. As a council, we've often been reluctant to preemptively rezone something. But in some cases, it might be helpful as an encouragement or push to private developers.
If you'd like, we're meeting tomorrow as a group, and then we have a little bit more expertise on the subject together. We can email you just about what we've looked into and what we can look into.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just, my name is Jamin Roan. Again, maybe I'll just, one of the students who was became the expert in this couldn't make it today. You know, a lot of the students that would have liked to have been here couldn't. And just, I think that there is interest in reducing in lot sizes throughout the neighborhood. And this was just an example of a place where, you know, it's already, pretty small lot sizes and an example of what other space might look like. In terms of the residential conservation zone, I think there was real hesitancy among the group about taking away and proposing, and we've only learned midway through the semester that the city is already planning on taking away all of the residential conservation zones throughout the city in the next zoning map for the reasons that they talked about. And so this was something that we didn't, I think we were kind of in limbo about, if you propose taking away residential conservation zones and then, doing something else, like would that be too much too soon for people? And so only recently I think we've begun to look at the city's doing this already. Maybe we can be a little bit more bold in proposing things. So I think when the city, takes this project over, I think that's something that they will continue to look at. Think about it. I think that Eric from my memory would be interested in opening that from the neighborhood of kind of really thinking more creatively and proactively about changing things.
Counselor Hoban.
When we talk about parking, it's always kind of sticky. And I noticed you have parking minimums would likely need to decrease. So how many of you have a car here? 2 of the 4. What have you guys experienced, those of you with cars, have you experienced issues like finding parking in Provo around your housing and such, or it's just a constant debate, right? And so I'm curious if you all yourselves have experienced that issue, or if it's maybe there's different perceptions out there.
Yeah, I mean, I live right next to campus, and if there's no spots in the parking garage, it's like a hunt, in the campus residential zones be difficult. But we did also, one of the questions on the survey was how difficult is it to find parking in the North Park neighborhood? And actually the majority responded that sometimes it could be difficult, but not insanely difficult. Sorry, that's not a very technical way to put that, but yeah, I'm not saying you had something to say.
No, yeah, I agree. I think, depending on which apartment complex you live at, it's really easy, but if not, it could really delay where you're supposed to be, so, but yeah, I agree.
So it just situationally depends.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
How do you how cars feel about just not having a car?
Ooh.
Wait, what?
Yeah, because a lot of times that's what it ends up being, right?
Yeah.
Is choices. And so now that you guys have the car and you have a parking for reason, sure. How do you feel about not having a car at all?
I personally, I drive my car probably literally once a month. That's not an exaggeration. I don't use my car. So I for me personally, it's not a big thing. Once again, I'm a student. I know in my little corner of the world, little campus bubble, but I think definitely for a lot of students, it's easy to give up their car. But for residents of an actual neighborhood, it depends, I think, on where the neighborhood's situated, what your needs are. And that's another big reason why we're trying to increase connectivity within the neighborhood, so people don't have to be so dependent on their cars for their day-to-day tasks.
Right, and I appreciate that, but I'm gonna throw it out there, like, because this is a class. And I realize that a lot of students bring their car for whatever reason and don't use it, they still have to have a place to park it. So this becomes the debate. And if we reduce those parking minimums, we're gonna have to have ways where people just don't have cars, and necessarily by increasing shadows and stuff, that doesn't solve that problem, right? So, and I'm not asking you guys to come back to us here, it's just the thought for you guys, this is the career choice, it's not for them following. You know, to consider that we're asking, once we do these parking minimums, we're asking for them to have a life culture change, right? We're not Europe, we don't, that's not our culture is around the clock. And that for those parking minimums to come, that means sacrifices for families and for students and so how are you gonna get home for Thanksgiving or Christmas? That changes, right? Because now you don't have a car. So just consider those in your, we have to consider all modes of transportation and all people and all situations like that. So the council say, oh, we're gonna get rid of parking minimums because now all of a sudden we've got kids parking in church parking lots with no, my mom and dad pay tithing. This is so real, so stuff that people see, my mom and dad pay tithing, and so we have the right to park in this church parking lot because there's no place else to park. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback, thank you.
Well, special thanks to all of you. We greatly appreciate your presentation, your report, your extensive work. We've taken notes. We look forward to continuing to discuss these topics, and thank you, Professor Rowan, for leading this group, and the neighborhood leaders who have been involved along the way. And I was at the presentation you did to the district last Thursday along with some others, and it was interesting to see their enthusiasm for your work as well. So thank you again. We appreciate your time today and presentation.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And I assume if we have follow-up questions, we can connect with Professor Rowan and with you as well.
Thank you.
That way. Thank you. Next, we have an ordinance approving the petition to annex approximately 38.79 acres of property generally located at 620 North Lakeview Parkway in the Lakeview South and Fort Utah neighborhoods, presented by City Planner Hannah Saltz. Hello, Hannah, welcome.
Hello, I'll go quickly because I was the time buffer for that group and it took the entire time. So I want to make sure we're respectful of the rest of the agenda, but this is not my first time working with these student projects. Really quickly, just as a wrap up there. Thank you so much. This is an interdisciplinary group. It's actually hosted through the English department where Professor Rowan teaches. So for many of these students, this is their first brush with learning how cities work, and it's something that they can take forward into whatever careers they pursue. And it's such a good opportunity to get them thinking through this lens. So thank you for your engagement. They chose the North Park as where they wanted to focus. We don't have plans for it, but they did some incredible work. We're so impressed. And thank you again for engaging so well with them. All right. This, I'll run you through the very quick basics. This is more for the public this evening. This is a fairly small, and from a staff perspective, fairly straightforward annexation. We just wanted to give you a little bit more time to talk about it because it's gotten so much public attention and there's been some incorrect information about it. So I want to make sure that you understand what the public is hearing, how they've responded to the correct information, and then have time to answer your own questions or to ask your own questions before the evening meeting. This is Lakeview Parkway. Here's the delta coming along over here. So it's a fairly small and then includes a surface road annexation of several parcels totaling 38.79 acres. It is the easternmost area of our annexation area 4. So this is an area that we've already planned for potential future annexation. I don't know what that is, but we're going to move past that. The current zone is RA5 in the county. There were some public perceptions that it was a wetland zone and currently had zoning protections on some kind of conservation. That's not true. It is a designated wetland area, but it is zoned RA5. In the annexation area policies. Area 4 is specified as coming in under our open space and preservation zone. So when the public learned that it was not zone wetlands, the current county zoning did have some development rights, and bringing it into the city would actually put it in a more conservation oriented zone. It would have to go through a rezone process before it ever was developed, and that rezone process would look at wetlands development, mitigation, and conservation standards, and would give more opportunity for neighborhood and public input. They didn't have any questions or any other concerns. We had a couple of people even show up to the planning commission meeting to give comment, but once I'd explained and finished my presentation, not a single person stood up. They all came out afterward and were like, oh, okay, actually, I'm fine with this. The angle I think that they needed to understand is not that, or is that this is not a decision about whether or not the land should be conserved or developed right now. This decision is about whether or not Provo City and its residents should have a say in that next step of the decision of whether this is a county or a city decision for what development does or does not happen here. And when they saw it that way, that this was their opportunity for Provo and their residents to have more of a say, they were supportive of the annexation. This would be split between the Lakeview South and Fort Utah neighborhoods, whose boundary is that road that runs right through the middle there. That is everything that I felt like you needed to know before we go into the evening meeting tonight. Do you have any concerns or questions to get out of the way?
Councilor Bogdan.
So I was forwarded an email. And so I would say that no, not all those concerns were kiboshed at planning commission. But they were wondering still, and I explained to them.
Hey, Becky, is your microphone on?
It is, and I'm probably too
Okay.
far away from it.
Yeah, thank you.
So I explained to them that what they wanted is when they heard that the northeast areas were coming in under it's not a development agreement, but an annexation agreement. And they were wondering if we could do the same thing over here. And I explained to them that the restrictions, they're different. And then I also explained to them that it's actually the Army Corps of Engineers and the federal government who designates wetlands. And that mitigation process is up to the feds, it's not up to the city.
Mm-hmm.
And they will, and I did have Public Works sent me a list of what needed to happen. And during that during that mitigation process, that they also have an opportunity for public comment. Mm-hmm. And if it is designated wetlands, it is the federal government that will decide whether development can occur, whether it can occur, and if it does occur, how much of that has to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be fairly expensive for them to even replace wetlands, especially if it's like the Lakeview Parkway where it's like more than 1-to-1. You're praying for a 1-to-1. So I think that's important for them to understand as well, is that we don't control that.
Yeah.
That's controlled by the federal government. And then wetlands are taken seriously by the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah. Absolutely. All of that is correct. Thank you for helping your residents and the constituents on the west side understand that. The northern portion is designated wetlands, but isn't as marshy, and it abuts that development that's happening just south of Provo High. And this southern portion, you can see some of these darker patches are groundwater that has seeped up from below. So development on the southern parcels here would be a lot more difficult and would definitely require some federal level following these wetlands mitigations, high level scrutiny. The upper doesn't have the same groundwater concerns, again, is abutting current ongoing development. So I think that's where residents' concern stems from, is that this is an area that is already so close to new homes coming in and also directly adjacent to the Delta. So they're feeling a conflicting pressure on these parcels, and they've expressed a desire for it to remain wetlands, which is still a possibility. The annexation doesn't change that. It just shifts the decision from county level to more of a Provo level.
Any other questions for Hannah? Yes, Councilor.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously won't be on the council when that ultimate decision is made. And this pertains to another annexation question that is coming up also in our meetings. I have reservations about developing so close to the Delta. I know that's not what we're deciding, but I do think in both cases, I'd rather see these properties under our jurisdiction so that we have direct say and control over what happens. But I would just hope that we're really careful about this area. Is very sensitive. It has so many appealing qualities because of the openness and the Delta. So, you know, hopefully with our river and lake plan and good careful thinking on the part of the council, you guys will make the right decision ultimately about whether any of this gets developed. So.
Yes, and this could be developed. It could remain our OSPR zone, which has no development rights of any kind. It's a very short zone. It just says no development. This is only for open space preservation. It's like 2 paragraphs. If the council wanted to pursue formal conservation easement, those are options that are all on the table if it's under Provo's jurisdiction. So that's the question tonight, is just whether or not to annex. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
For your presentation. We'll look forward to addressing it again tonight.
Yeah, I'll see you again tonight.
Thank you. Next, we have an ordinance amending zone map classification of real property generally located at 113 and 191 North Geneva Road from the general commercial zone to the medium density residential zone in the Fort Utah neighborhood, presented by City Planner Dustin Wright.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so here is the site that you just read in here. It's just off of Center Street and Geneva Road. Currently it makes up consists of 2 parcels there, one with a single family home, the other with the cabinet shop there. In the general commercial zone, currently, and the applicant's proposing the MDR, medium density residential zone, so that they can build, they propose some townhomes there. The zone change request, as you can see here on the other side, is our general plan map. It doesn't follow the designation there for mixed use development. They're just asking for commercial essentially there, or residential there. So the other issue that this request brings up is that one about commercial on the west side of Provo. We've heard quite a bit about there being a big need for commercial on the west side of Provo, and so this would change that existing commercial to residential and kind of go the opposite direction that we're looking to preserve there. So, you know, as we kind of take a look at the bigger area there, staff sees this area as a good place for, you know, commercial development on the west side of Provo. So the planning commission also recommended denial of changing this zone to the MDR zone. So that's essentially what we're looking at tonight. If there's any questions that you have for me now, I'd be happy to answer those.
Councilor Bogdan.
Mine would be more directed towards Aaron. I noticed the other day when I was asked about the poppy pod, the section on the corner and the section just right above it. So there's the section on the corner, then a house, and the section right above it right there. Here's the Family Dollar over to the west. It's all owned by the same development company or the same property owner. Do we know what they have in store for the future? Are they holding out and waiting for the homes to become available to purchase? Are they sitting there thinking, hey, because I know that the piece on the corner, Hinckley's tried to do some kind of a restaurant there, and I believe, if I remember right, they didn't have enough parking. They couldn't make the parking work because it's so weird. And so it looks like the property owners purchased the piece, and it's all connected in the west. And you can even see over here, the one that's in the red rectangle, it could also extend there to the west as like connectivity with parking lot or whatever.
So yeah, the property on the
south.
Property on the northwest corner of Center Geneva there. It's been our experience that the property owner is hesitant to sell out or to develop the property. He likes the idea of continually leasing it out to temporary uses.
Okay.
We can't really push them away from that right now. So they have been able to kind of coordinate development of that whole corridor with that corner property. to ask your question.
Yeah, I mean, he owns this and that.
Right.
Okay,
But not the little,
this is a house. And I think there's another house right here. It looks like this is all the same owner.
Yeah, those two properties are the same owner, Provo City.
And so basically what we're asking them to do if we deny the zone is to wait until this property is ready to develop and sell. But they,
Well, I think
Do
it
it
doesn't
together?
necessarily have to be all done at once, but preserving commercial potential on this area of Provo is important for the city. And that's why we recommend denial of section.
okay. And then this is off topic and you might not even know because it's in the department, but not necessarily under your thing. Has anybody reached out to the coffee pod and tried to get them a different place to go? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of, but we can follow up with economic development, see if there's been conversation.
Yeah, because I know, and the public has really no, they just throw out ideas because they're not property owners, but if he's just renting it for temporary spaces, maybe that's something he or she, whoever the property owner is, would be interested in moving coffee there. Thanks.
okay, oh, yes, Councilor Whipple.
So I feel like we've already seen this before. Have we not? Did we see it at a neighborhood meeting or something? Cause I remember seeing the proposal with the townhomes and everything.
Yeah, it did go to a neighborhood meeting or
Okay.
a district meeting. And it went to planning commission.
Okay.
So.
It's just, sometimes I get deja vu in these things. Thanks.
Counselor Whipple, there was a proposal earlier this year for townhomes along Geneva on the south of Center. So I don't know if you're remembering that.
That was the Steve
It's in there. I was thinking it was this, but it's late in the year.
All right, thank you, Dustin. We'll plan to listen again tonight and ask further questions and be ready for a vote tonight. Thank you. We'll now take a brief recess and reconvene at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
We'll reconvene our work session and turn our attention next to an ordinance amending Provo City Code 4.04.100 to allow pension eligible employees to receive matching 401k contributions from the city. This will be presented by our HR Director, Daniel Softley. Hello, Daniel. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. So I am proposing a change to city code to allow post-retired employees, those who are already collecting a pension from the Utah retirement system, to participate in our matching 401k program if they are also allowed by URS. So this code goes back a while. It was originally created around a rule by Utah retirement system that essentially says if you have an employee who collects a pension from URS and they come back to work for an agency that also participates in URS, the agency is not allowed to contribute anything more towards their retirement. That is URS's rule. So when this was originally created, that is why it was put in the way it was. Now, this rule still exists, but there is an exception that if the post-retired employee is in a job that does not participate in Social Security, they are allowed to get additional retirement contributions. So for Provo City, that means our sworn police officers and firefighters. So we are talking about a very small group of employees. We currently have 5 employees who fall into this category, 4 police officers and 1 firefighter. So this change would allow them to participate in our matching 401k program. All of our other employees that are pre-retired are already participating in this program. So the financial impact can be anywhere from 0 if they choose to not participate up to $18,500 if they participate fully. Now allowing this would also make us more attractive to other post-retired employees out there because about half of the agencies that are police and fire still participate in Social Security, so they're not allowed to contribute if they go to there. So this is good for us. Yes.
Okay, so I need to clarify. So this is just affecting people who already retired
Correct.
and they're coming back in their second career to
Correct.
do whatever.
Yep.
So they're getting their pension
Yep.
and then, but they still want to join the 401k match.
Correct.
Okay.
So if we were an agency that allowed police and fire to participate in Social Security, the URS rule would not allow us to give anything else. But because we have opted out of that, the URS rule allows them to participate.
Now, does this mean they have to be working in police and fire, or could they be working in HR? Or
No, they would have to be working in a job that exempt from Social Security.
okay.
Yeah, that's why it's advantageous for Provo City, because about half of the police agencies and firefighter agencies that are out there participate in Social Security. So a post-retired employee can't go to them and continue to build, supplemental retirement contributions, but they could come to us. So if we allow this, the way I've proposed the language change is to essentially say, if you are allowed to participate in our matching 401k program if the URS allows you to do so. So any other questions?
Great, thank you, Daniel.
Okay.
And now this is not on our agenda for tonight.
No, I believe this is coming back on December 16th.
Okay, in a couple of weeks. All right, thank you again.
Okay.
We'll work on this. Next, we have an ordinance amending the consolidated fee schedule to update fees related to business licenses and rental dwelling licenses, presented by our customer operations business analyst, Laramie Gonzalez, and Zion's Public Finance VP, Aaron Sanborn. Welcome.
Well, thank you. We're bringing back our business and rental licensing fee study that we brought to you a few months ago. During the last few months, we've kind of taken some time to do some public outreach, little due diligence, kind of get that out in the public, make sure that the public's aware of what's happening, why it's happening, kind of just give them a little bit of a heads up so nobody's really caught off guard that something's in the works. So it's not a whole lot has changed since you saw this last, but we'll go over some history as to why we're here. So about a year or so ago, we talked a little bit about the fees, the current fees, if they cover the city costs, when they were updated last, that kind of thing. I think it's because over the last couple of years, we've done some pretty good work as far as catching up the licensing program, cleaning it up, all those kinds of things. And I like to think it's because of that good work that people were saying, hey, what's going on? Are we covering all of our bases here? And so we knew that they have been outdated for quite some time. So we were asked to have somebody come in and do a analysis for us. So in May of 2024, we contracted with Zion's Public Finance, and they began that fee analysis for us. In previous studies, the last time we had anyone look at the fee structure itself was back in 2010. And over the course of years after that, there have been few changes as far as like anniversary dates and changing from the business classification to business type and whatever. But as far as the fees themselves, nothing has been changed or updated since 2011. And at that time, there was no fee increase. So with that, that's what kind of brought us where we are today. So we've got Zion's with us today. Aaron is going to go over the study itself, what's in the study, and how they came up with the numbers and the analysis in that study itself. And then after Aaron's done talking, I'll do a recap of what's in there and the staff recommendation going forward. Aaron.
Thanks, Laramie. It's great to be back with you council members here today. Just again, to provide an update on the study and kind of really the logic behind what is contained in it. So I wanted to start off talking about the model in general and kind of what the purpose of it is, go through how we came up with the numbers, and finally what the results that were. So a business study, license study, and also rental dwelling license study is what we call a revenue sufficiency model. So essentially all we're saying is there's a cost identified to Provo City to provide this service. And we want to know, what does it take in order for the fees to match what you need, what the cost is to provide the service. All these models, of course, we want them to be insightful, be useful for the city, also easy to use and to understand how everything goes in to the model. And ultimately, when it comes to state requirements, the code as far as these models, there's not a tremendous amount of instruction about what is required or whatnot, but essentially what we're looking at is ensuring there's a method to provide the revenue required to offset the cost to provide those services. And that this rational nexus is kind of the key thing, where we can't just throw everything in there, but we have to say the fees that are being charged are tied to rationally what it takes to provide that service. Everything goes in, those inputs, whether that be the cost from the city, whether that be the amounts of that it takes cost per call to respond to one of these types of things, put it into the model and come up with the outputs. And again, the ultimate goal for this is to balance things out. This is not meant to be a profit generating model. We're not looking to make business owners and landlords pay for more than their fair share of the impact that they're creating, but find that balance point where they are offsetting the cost of providing their service. And so to do this for both the business license and the rental dwelling licenses, we look at 4 main categories of fee. And this is, again, this is kind of what the code allows us to do. There's our base administrative costs. There's special regulatory costs, enhanced services, and then disproportionate costs to come up with a total license fee. And just real briefly to kind of go into all these, your base administrative costs, this is what it takes to actually process a license. This is your staff time and those direct costs that it takes in order to get an application all the way through to approval. There's also some indirect costs in there where there's different services that are provided here at the city that every employee benefits from. And by extension, the landlords and the businesses who apply for licenses are taking benefit of those as well. And we can include those costs. Special regulatory costs are if there are certain rental units or businesses that require extra inspections or certain things according to law or code that requires some additional work by city employees. Enhanced services is a category of the fee where if there are certain types of businesses or rental units that receive a higher level of service, whether that's snow removal, trash pickup, beautification efforts, there's a number of different items that they can be included in that to help provide some additional services. Business license and rental dwelling license fees allow you to recoup the cost of that. And then the last one here, the disproportionate cost. This is looking at coming up with essentially your baseline, which is an average single family residential home. What does it take to provide service to that unit? The code allows you to look at public utilities, police, fire, code enforcement, stormwater runoff, traffic control, parking, transportation, and also beautification, snow removal. We specifically, in this study, looked only at police and fire as far as those extra disproportionate costs. The way that we come up with the disproportionate fee is to look at what does it take currently for Provo City Police and Provo City Fire to respond to a call, the cost that is borne by those services. That helps us to calculate this baseline level of service. And we do that by gathering the data of all the police and fire calls for a period of a year. And we geocode those. We use GIS analysis to pinpoint where every one of those calls occurred, to know who is calling for this service, whether that's a business, a regular home, a multifamily unit, a rental, in order to determine where that impact is coming from. Yeah.
I did have, you mentioned residential. I had one email was asking me why put these extra costs of police and fire on businesses and not at all on residents. And what would be your response to that?
The way that the disproportionate costs information from the code comes in is used as the state's metric for the standard level of service that's provided to everybody. And so already every business, every rental unit is receiving that same baseline level of service. And so Yes, there may be some residential units that, get a higher, cost per call. The way the code reads, we can only use that as our baseline service, and then it is above and beyond that where the code allows for business licenses and rental dwelling licenses to be able to be charged comparatively how they compare to that. And so that's why that's the methodology for using that as kind of the baseline level of service. Along with that, we have to group similar businesses together. So we're not just randomly selecting businesses based on the level of calls they have, but it is businesses that are providing similar services. And right now the city has around 70 or so categories of businesses, and those are used to determine, hey, businesses that are restaurants, for example, you're going to be grouped together. Businesses that are providing general retail, you're grouped together because in theory, their impact is going to be fairly similar as far as what they are doing and what their demands would be. And finally, compare those again to the baseline for that single family residential to determine how much more of an impact do they have over that baseline. Again, for this study, for business license fee, we're only looking at the base administrative costs and then the disproportionate cost. And that would be, those are added together to come up with the total license fee. So even though you may see in some instances that the base administrative cost for some businesses may be going down or maybe going up, the disproportionate cost as well is another area where those fees are recouped. And then for the rental dwelling license fee, this study is only looking to kind of change the base administrative cost. And we'll get into why here in a little bit. So first step obviously is to identify the total cost that it takes for city employees to process a license. These are each one of these categories is an employee. We did not put their names because those can change in and out, but those are the different employees here in the city that at some level have something to do with approving a license. This is for both the business license fees and the rental dwelling. They'll both use this base administrative cost per minute. And it also includes, so that is their wage and their benefits. It includes those indirect costs we talked about. That's like IT services or facilities, things that every employee here in Provo utilizes to do their job. And so those costs are included. There are training costs where if there are employees who are receiving training or doing meetings that are related to licensing, we're allowed to include those costs, as well as there are specialized supplies that are required in order to do their job. We can add those in to come up with those total costs per minute. In addition to that, there are a few per license costs where the state code allows the city to recoup the cost of doing the study to examine the licenses, as well as this customer service cost. And this came about as we were discussing with customer service staff about that there are a number of calls that come into the call center that aren't being directly handled by those who are directly involved with licensing. And to capture the impact those businesses and rental dwellings have, this is where that customer service cost is, where every license would be charged $7.32 in order for their impact overall on that call center to be captured. And so these are kind of the current and then the proposed new license fees. You'll see kind of with the main business licenses, there's a proposal to switch it away from based off of an employee cost to a general business license fee for all businesses. And that would work out to be a little over $250 per year for the business license. You guys see the home business as well. There's the changes there. It's important to note that state code prohibits cities from charging home-based businesses a business license fee unless their impact with the business is greater than what it is just for the single-family use as alone. So that's why that fee is still there for if there are businesses whose impact is above what the normal home is, or if a business elects to receive a license, they can be charged that as well.
So Aaron, some of those on the left-hand column, that's number of employees, right?
Correct. Yep.
So some of those larger businesses, their fees actually come down.
Correct. Because that's based off of moving away from this model, because as we look at the actual process, there really isn't much of a rational nexus for why a larger business may be charged more when their impact actually may be lower than what a smaller business could be. And so that's why the shift to just a general license fee, but then the disproportionate fee is where you're really accounting for the impacts that a trucking business might have as opposed to a smaller business. And that's why all those ones get averaged out to that general business license fee.
And excuse me, where does the disproportionate fee show up?
We'll get to those here in just a minute. The disproportionate. Okay. These are just the base administrative costs for the business licenses.
Thank you.
And then kind of going through as well, and here again, you can see that for the alcohol licenses, those base fees are reduced, and that may cause some a little bit of confusion because there are oftentimes businesses who have a beer license, their impact is greater. But again, this is just looking at the cost for city employees to issue a license, not on the actual impact that business has. And that's where the disproportionate fee would account for whatever impact those businesses do have. And you can see kind of going through as well, some of the licenses, the fees will go up. And in some cases, those will go down just based off what the actual cost to provide services. And here's where we get into the disproportionate fee, excuse me. And again, when we look at, we take all the calls for service that happen in the city, both in police and fire, and we categorize those based on where the calls came from. We also take the budgets for both police and fire, and when working with those departments, identified how much of their time is spent responding to calls or doing activities that are related to responding to calls, to identify how much of their budget is actually spent doing that. And those where you see that the cost per call for police around $410 per call, and fire around $379. And these are where we have all the different calls for service for each of the business categories. And again, there's 2 large pages of this. I won't go into every category, but you can just look, for example, the food and beverage stores towards the bottom there. There are 32 businesses that use that category as their business type. The police calls per business were 1.89. So that's on average how many calls per year each of those businesses received. We do remove extreme outliers from this so that they are not skewing the data for everybody, because again, every business in this category is charged the same fee because they are a similar business. And then they also had 1.4 fire calls per business. Then what we do is we have to subtract out that base ratio of calls for the standard single-family residential unit. And so that's why you have the final ratio for food and beverage for police at 1.6 calls per business and fire at 1.25. So if the ratio is positive, that's saying this business category has a higher impact than your standard residential unit. If it has a 0, then it has the same impact. If it has a negative ratio there, it's saying this business category actually receives less of it, has less of an impact on city services for the police and fire than an average single-family residential unit. This just looks at any of these business categories who, at the end of the day, had positive ratios in police and fire. And this is just taking that ratio, multiplying by the cost per call to come up with a total cost for the disproportionate fee. And so again, thinking about, for example, businesses who have an alcohol license, they'd be charged at $76 for their base license. And let's say that they were a gas station that served alcohol. They would also be charged around $2,400 of a disproportionate fee, because based on the actual calls for service, those businesses did have a significantly higher impact on police and fire services than other businesses. And so that's where the impact of this on the city services is captured. It's in these here. And that's why we have both the base fee and disproportionate fee added together for the total license fee. Really quickly, kind of on the revenue side, currently the city, if there were no changes made to the fee structure, there'd be about $500,000 worth of revenue generated from the current business licenses. Moving forward,
That's important to say it's not revenue in the sense of,
yeah, exactly. In other words, this is what you're pulling in. It's not,
we're paying
it's not
ourselves back.
profit.
Yes.
This is the revenue that is generated from those services. Great point. Then if the new fee structure were adopted at just the base fee, a little over $640,000, and then base fee plus disproportionate, a little over $960,000 of revenue. Again, that's the cost. That $968,000, that's the cost to provide services for Provo City for business licenses. Comparatively, it's always important, even though it's always hard to completely compare apples to apples because services are different in every city. But we just picked a few of the different categories that both Provo City and Orem had for business licenses. And as you can see, some categories would be more expensive here in Provo, and some would be cheaper here in Provo. It's not, you're by raising the license fees, you're not going to all of a sudden push every business out of the city.
Just a quick question on
Yeah.
this. So this total Provo fee is the proposed one,
Correct.
not the current one?
Yep.
Okay, that wasn't.
Yeah,
looking at the slide.
yep. Thank you for that. Yeah, this is the proposed fee based and then the current Orem fee, both base fee and disproportionate fee. So the total fee there. On average, Provo is right around the average, a little bit higher. Springville and Orem have the highest per license fee currently. I will say Vineyard is one that they are currently looking at their business license fees. And so even though they're a little bit lower, those ones are being looked at as well. But that's the current market for some of the comparable cities. And again, not every one of these cities has a disproportionate license fee as well. I believe Orem is the one that currently has that structure as well.
And so again, this green one for Provo is what's proposed?
Yep, that's the proposed. And so then switching gears a little bit to the rental dwelling license fees, the process, the methodology is largely the same, where the base fees, as far as the cost per minute, those are the same because it's the same people who are going to be reviewing these licenses as well. And so in total, the new fee that could be charged for each of these for the elderly is a little over $38 per unit, which is a reduction from the current $50 fee. The base rental dwelling license fee would be at around $86. And then the rental dwelling license fee for multiple units has a $53.27 base fee. But then because there are certain city employees who have to do inspections on every unit, that's where we get a per unit charge. And that's the time that it takes those employees to do those inspections for each of those units. These are what the fees are proposed to be for the rental dwelling. We also did the process to go through, look at the disproportionate costs. We categorized similar type units as best we could to group like units together. And you can see again, some of them have higher ratios than a single family home, and some have lower. And so those costs, if they were charged, some of those have a disproportionate fee and some of them would not. However, because of, before I get to that, the revenue currently that is coming in to meet the costs is $121,000, but we're looking at the estimated fee revenue. This is where your true costs are, where in general, it does take $822,000 to provide services to the rental dwelling units in the city. But
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is that assuming that an actual inspection happens on every single rental dwelling license? Because it's my understanding, not every rental dwelling license, every home or apartment, or whatever, is inspected. So how do you take that into account in these fees?
Yeah, and I may need to point to Laramie or someone for this one a little bit, but based on the study, and that's only charged on multifamily units, which I believe those are the only ones that are required to have an inspection as part of the approval process. I could be wrong on that, Laramie, but I believe that's the.
But are we, like, let's say it's a 20-plex, are we inspecting all 20 or are we spot checking?
If I may, it's our understanding that every unit upon application is inspected regardless of the unit type.
The very first time.
Correct.
But then it's like, then they can't be then they can't be inspected for 3 years.
They can.
And then it's random.
If needed, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, great question. The thing with the disproportionate fee, and this comes from the state code, a city cannot adopt a new disproportionate rental fee unless the municipality provides for a fee reduction and utilizes a good landlord program as a part of this. And that's a key thing. And that's why with this study, even though we have the data to show, hey, here's what the disproportionate fee could be, it's not recommended for that this time. And Larry, if you want to go ahead.
I'll get to that question in our highlights and recommendations, because there are some reasons as to why we are not recommending that.
Yeah.
So just some highlights here on what Aaron has explained to you. So with business licensing, the current fee structure is based on total employee counts. And we talked a little bit as to why that doesn't seem like the appropriate way to continue. So the new fee structure would be on not employee count, but on business type. I think I might have said that wrong the first time. The current fees, they start about $125 depending on the amount of employees, and it goes up from there. I think 800 is the largest one. I think we have like a few businesses that have 100 plus employees that those businesses fall into that category. Like Aaron said, the current revenue generated today is about $500,000, and the proposed revenue is based on the base fee only, or the base fee plus the disproportionate fee. I think what's interesting, or what's important to know, and I think Aaron pointed this out, is this is the break-even point for Provo. So going forward, I think it's a matter of where we decide to either try to cover those costs or try to subsidize, and who's going to be subsidizing that in the future. So I think the break-even point here is really is the key there of the $968,000. So you can see we are subsidizing the licensing program to the tune of about $400,000 a year. And again, I think Aaron pointed this out already. That just puts us right about average as far as Provo compared to the surrounding cities. So the customer service recommendations for business licensing going forward is to adopt the new proposed fee structure based on business type and with the disproportionate fee, and with the disproportionate fee included. We didn't see any reason as to why we would not want to recoup some of those city services when looks like the burden of the subsidy to the program lies in that particular area. Rental dwelling highlights. The rental dwelling licensing program, the current fee structure doesn't change a whole lot. So right now it's a single unit is $20, 2 or more is $60 per unit. And as Aaron pointed out, the revenue there of current $121,000, the base fee only is $540. The base fee plus a disproportionate fee does take us to $822,000, but the disproportionate fee requires a good landlord program. And a good landlord program is, I'm going to skip ahead to the next slide for this one. So the good landlord program has some pros and cons. So the pros, it's set up to encourage those landlords to be good landlords and give them different tools that helps them just be better landlords in general. And it also does allow for us to charge a disproportionate fee to recapture those costs. The cons is the tracking of that program does require extra resources that we currently don't have in place today. It's not very enforceable because it's all an interpretation of how they follow that particular program and how it's outlined and what the goals of that program are designed to do. And then ultimately offering a discount for the participation in the landlord program, to charge a disproportionate fee for good landlord program requires us to have a discount. So I think the concern here is by the time we administer this program and get those additional resources to track the program, and then we give a discount for those landlords to participate in the program, now we've increased our costs of doing business for the licensing for rental dwelling licenses going forward, which kind of diminishes the whole purpose of what we're trying to do here.
Could I ask a question about that? Because the gap seems so big. If you could go back to the previous slide, if we drop the disproportionate fee, I mean, the gap between current revenue and is $700,000.
Right.
So it seems to me that, I mean, it seems to me that if we had the disproportionate fee imposed, even if we were giving discounts on good landlord programs, we're still making it covering the cost much more than we currently are, or even that we would if we only had the base fee. So because there's still almost a $300,000 gap there. So I can't imagine we're giving away $300,000 of benefits to good landlords, are we?
Well, that's all to be decided. If you decide to do a disproportionate fee and offer that discount, it's up to the city to decide what that discount is. So some cities are discounting 20%, some are 80%. It just depends on what you will find as you would like to have as an incentive to have those good landlords.
So it's not necessarily inevitable that we lose a significant amount of recouping of our costs if we decide to do a landlord program.
Right, you could have a good landlord program and offer like a 10% discount, so you're not really losing a whole lot of that additional revenue for the program itself. But in the other cities that we've contacted, and the pros and cons and the successes that they've had, they found that without a significant discount in a good landlord program, for the good landlord program,
no incentive.
There's no participation. And at the end of the day, the ones that we did talk to that still has a current good landlord program, they didn't see any real measurable metrics that said, here's what we've noticed by having a good landlord program. This increased the quality of the rentals going forward by X amount. So
But if people don't choose to participate in it, then you get the full amount of the disproportionate fee.
Well, with one caveat, which is, and Larry will probably talk about this later, but when you're looking at the difference, you got to calculate both the discount and the cost of administering the program.
Right.
So even if nobody chooses to, even if you're not losing enough from the discount.
But if you had one FTE doing it, that'd be what, $70,000 a year for a $300,000 a year thing. So we'd be net positive $230,000 a year.
And that's where I'm going to defer to Laramie about the information we got from other cities about how much it's costing.
Yeah, it's the map is still kind of confusing to me because it seems to me that we really would want that disproportionate fee.
Yeah, you think, and it depends on, I think that's that balance between what you offer as a discount for participation versus trying to get them incentivized to participate. So again, if they don't participate, you would realize the whole disproportionate fee there. But we still have to administer that good landlord program, and we still have to run that program.
I like your recommendation. I think starting without the disproportionate fee is appropriate, and it gets us significantly closer to meeting our you know, the actual cost of what we're doing. It's disappointing that they say that our feedback has been that they can't see much of an improvement with rental standards with the good landlord program. And we're so hogtied by the state in what we can enforce or push on that front that it doesn't seem very helpful as it is. And I think we'll get more pushback and frustration on the disproportionate fee part of it than just doing the base fee that is, you know, data driven. And I mean, they're both data driven, but that seems like a significant jump and appropriate to get us back on track.
I guess it kind of depends on the intensity of the program itself, on how much it does cost to administer the program, and then what you all decide as an incentive as far as the discount to get them to participate. We reached out on two different fronts. We belong to the Utah Business Licensing Association, and we had sent out a survey to every city in the state, and to those especially that have a rental dwelling license program. And we didn't get a ton of responses. I think we might have got 8-ish. And I think we only had one that was kind of neutral on the fact that it was fine. They didn't see a big improvement in the standard of rental dwelling licenses. It kind of worked out to where it did cost them a whole lot more to run it with the extra staff that they needed to do that. But in large, all of them just said, "Are you crazy? Why are you entertaining the idea of running a program that's not really going to help you?" And then we did go to the Utah Business Licensing Conference this year. And I did throw that out to the crowd of all the licensing officials in the room and just said, Provo's looking to do this, and give me some feedback, pros and cons, whatever you think that would be good to know. And they all pretty much said the same thing. Like, it's just so not worth it. You could find other ways through enforcement or through inspections, that kind of thing. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, getting an inspection out there to have landlords to correct their remedy their problems is really the goal anyways. So we didn't get a whole lot of positive reinforcement that a good landlord program was worth the time and effort, especially if we offered a discount.
Councilor Whipple?
Yeah, and so I was having conversations about this with various people, and some people who are landlords who have property in Salt Lake, but also here, were really surprised we don't have this kind of program, and told me that they appreciated being part of it because they learned things that they didn't know about being a landlord, you know, the rules, regulations, how they could make it better. And they appreciated that structure to give them this information, which completely surprised me because I thought it was just something where you go, you send your property management person and you check off the box and you get your discount. So I was really surprised to learn that some landlords found this to be a useful thing to help them be better.
To that point, I think some of those landlords find it a good tool to be a better business person, but not necessarily a better landlord as far as the quality of units that they offered.
Yeah.
That just seemed to be kind of
The
under.
ones that I were talking to were like not big investors, but people who only had a few properties and they're managing them themselves. And we have a lot of rental properties in Provo that are owned by a family. They have it as like their investment or their retirement account. They're the type of people I think who would benefit from this. If it's managed by one of the big property management companies, then there's absolutely no benefit to anybody.
Sure. I think at the end of the day, the reason why we didn't have, one of our recommendations was not to recommend the disproportionate fee to start a good landlord program, was it just seemed like the lowest hanging fruit at this point to catch us up, get us to where we're getting closer to the end goal of actually not subsidizing the program to the point it's being subsidized today, that we could also have that as a future conversation of what that program looks like and how we want to administer that and things like that. But we just didn't want that portion of the overall fee study to kind of hinder the rest of the progress. So, but we are totally in support of a disproportionate fee because it does make sense to break even there. It's just the administration of the program is what caused us to be a little hesitant to recommend that going forward.
Councilor Christensen.
Yeah, Laramie, just a quick question. And I heard the words you said, and I don't know that I can explain the rationale behind the disproportionate fee. I get the base fee logic, and I'm sorry, it could be the cough medicine I'm on. I'm not tracking with the disproportionate fee in terms of the rationale on why we would include that.
Are we talking for business licensing or rental dwelling licenses?
I'm talking rental dwelling licenses. Is that just so that we can have a good neighbor program?
Well, in general, the disproportionate fee covers all those other city services that are consumed by those licenses that are out there. So if someone gets a rental dwelling license and they have, let's say, 20 units, there is an additional impact on city services like police and fire. So to better or enable us to recapture those costs above and beyond what a normal, like a residential unit would be able to provide and allow for as far as the cost of the city, that allows us to recapture that additional revenue for those services. So
I see. Okay. In that case, I would agree with Catrice. I don't see the value in the disproportionate fee. Increasing the base fee, from 121 to 540 makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't agree with the additional fee.
Thank you, Councilor Christensen. Laramie, you mentioned that a study was done and presentation made to the council in 2011, was it?
Correct.
And no changes were made at that time.
Well, actually, there was some changes. Some of the fees did come down. So I think to err on the side of caution, I think some panicked and wasn't able to really justify at that time, and maybe just didn't want to have to go through the motions of doing.
So presumably the adjustments we're having to make this time are much higher than they would have been otherwise.
They are not significantly higher than what was proposed back in 2011.
Okay.
They are a little bit higher, but not significantly.
In your review and recommendation, particularly considering your interaction with others, did you consider a phased approach, like over 3 years or even 2 years, phasing to the new base fee as opposed to a 1-year jump?
We talked about that really briefly, and there was a couple of hindrances as to why that didn't make sense. Just the configuration and the programming of the program itself would be a little bit of a nightmare for us. And the second thing is, how do we justify saying we recognize there's a shortfall and we're just going to accept that shortfall's there, and maybe we'll just accept a smaller shortfall next year and a smaller one the year after that. So we thought in an effort to just bring it back up to where it's supposed to be and really put us in line with the surrounding cities, we just think that it wasn't that large of a jump for us to go. Because at the end of the day, some of those businesses, like Aaron had mentioned, they would come down just because of the way the fee structure is. So I think overall, there obviously there's an increase because we see that in the amount of revenue coming to the city. But it wasn't a deal breaker, especially when it's compared to the surrounding cities. So.
Councilor Whipple.
Yeah, looking at the disproportionate cost page in this presentation on the rental dwelling license fees, what I'm seeing is that certain types of units, like the elderly person living space, the cost of that is like $102 on the disproportionate cost. Or for our mobile home parks, it's $554. And these ones that have the additional cost are generally our more affordable units. And I think by not imposing the disproportionate cost, we're saying we want to prioritize continuing to have these more affordable housing options for tenants in our city. Because otherwise we are increasing the cost for those types of units by passing it on. So if this is the kind of subsidy that is consistent with our council priority of saying we want to have some relief for our tenants regarding their rents in the city, this is one way that we're doing that.
That's a good point.
Other comments or questions? Thank you, Laramie and Aaron. We'll look forward to continuing this discussion tonight.
It's actually not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. It's actually on the agenda for the evening of the 16th.
Thank you.
So,
all right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again. And we welcome Mayor Kafusi and Isaac to our meeting, and also Councilor Hoban, who's able to join us. We'll next move to a resolution approving the appropriation of $10,000 to pay for a public safety impact fee study for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. Presented by Kelsey Zarbuck. Hi, Kelsey.
Okay. So as Councilor or Chair Garrett just said, we're asking for an appropriation of $10,000 in the general CIP fund to pay for a public safety impact fee study. And the funding source for this is public safety impact fees. I want to be clear that this is not a recommendation for new impact fees. It's simply asking the council for the budget authority to pay for a consultant to do the initial impact fee study. Yes.
Do we know the last time that they changed their impact fees?
2017 is when the last study was done. We did consolidate the police and fire impact fees into the public safety impact fee this past spring. but that was just to bring us in alignment with state code. This is an actual study that would happen that would make recommendations on potential changes to impact fees for public safety. So that's pretty much it. Once we have a recommendation, we'd come back to the council and then proceed with the proper noticing and go through the 90-day public notice period if there were changes that you wanted to implement at that time. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Kelsey? Yes, Councilor Blondin.
So in 2017, the last time this was done, they actually raised the fees or not?
I believe they did. There were several fees that were studied at that time, including in public works. I think there was like several fees were updated at that point in time. And since then, like last winter was water impact fees. That study was done just recently, but there are several other impact fees that I know are on the docket for, you know, getting revamped at this point in time. I will say that public safety is the only one that we would need an appropriation for, just because a lot of those other impact fee studies could be taken care of through CIP funds where the impact fee revenue is already coming in and has been budgeted for. So that's why we're coming specifically for this one. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Kelsey. And this this will be on our schedule in 2 weeks.
Yeah, the 16th.
Next, we have a presentation regarding disaster recovery funding related to the Buckley Draw water mitigation efforts, also presented by Kelsey.
Okay. So as everyone in this room is well aware, there was a fire and then a mudslide over at Buckley Draw back in August. And there were costs that the city incurred in the mitigation efforts as a result. And at this point in time, the costs have come in close to $500,000. In the wording, we are asking for a transfer of up to $500,000, which will give us a little bit more time to settle into the final cost. But we thought this would be an appropriate time to utilize funding in the disaster recovery fund. This fund is eligible for use when there's been a declared disaster within the boundaries of the local government. And the person who can declare a local government disaster is the mayor, or as the state code says, the chief executive officer of the municipality. So Mayor Kafusi has a signed emergency declaration that she has provided, which then opens the door for the council to approve a transfer from that disaster recovery fund to the stormwater fund, which is where most of the expenses have been incurred. And we just want to open that up to the council for consideration on the 16th as well. Are there any questions about that? Yes.
Yeah, so when I was reading it, I know that all of our departments were tracking their hours and vehicle time and everything for that. And so I was wondering what the actual amount was. You just said it would be up to $500,000, but the language just says a transfer of $500,000, not up to.
I apologize. The wording, I think in the resolution draft is up to, is that right?
Yeah, both say
Up to.
just proposed $500,000.
Okay, I apologize. Then we would get a new draft that would be up to, I believe. Oh, does it say? Okay, good. That was the intent.
It's part one where
Okay,
Which one am I looking at?
you're looking at the language in the bottom is slightly different than the.
Yeah, it's only in the title.
Even on line 10, it says it is proposed that 500,000.
so we can make sure that that is updated. I know the intent was up to, unless Jimmy, you have new information. Okay, so that's a great catch. And the reason, just for clarification, the reason why there are two resolutions is because this involves our lovely stormwater fund, which is its own separate district, right? And so we need to transfer money from the disaster recovery fund, which is under the municipal council's authority, but then we have to appropriate the money in the stormwater service district. And so anyway, we'll make sure both of those are updated to reflect the up to amount. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm just glad to see that we can make use of some of that money.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Just so everyone's aware, the current balance in that fund is $1.9 million. So this would bring it down to about 1.4 million, but that could still only be touched if there was a declared disaster by the mayor. So that's still going to be accruing interest from this point forward.
Yes, Scott.
Maybe a specific aspect of it too is
after the initial debris flow, the debris channel was full. And so there was an emergency concern on if another debris flow or another storm came in. So working with Public Works, and Gordon and Public Works is here, we went with a private contractor to try to get on that right away emergency to add to the capacity of the existing debris flow channel. This is not the one that is being extended and built, but this was the existing one that was full after the first slide to make sure we protected those existing homes that were in that neighborhood. So that was a big aspect of the decision and the ask.
Great, thank you, Scott. Councillor Bogdan?
So Scott, with that, you just threw out a bunch of information, but not a number. How much, is it 500,000 that we paid the private contractor? Was it 250,000?
I know Gordon and I just talked about it, but could we get that number from Shane?
Yeah, so we just finished, we had substantial damage to that channel. Like Scott was saying, it was about 12 feet deep. It was about 3/4 full, kind of through the bottom and the midsection. The upper part of the channel has severe erosion, and it's large riprap. It's about a 40-foot wall of just large rock riprap for about 800 feet. A lot of that rock was washed down and eroded. We had erosion about 10 feet deep. Let's take it out of that channel. So we hired a contractor. We use Evans because they have the rock pit that's just north by the county, and we're able to use rock trucks and stay out of the neighborhood and actually have instead of using haul trucks. So that sped things up and made us able to do things on a lower cost and quicker. We just finished up complete restoration, so it's back in the same condition it was prior to the fire or any debris flow. So that's back in place. Safety wise, we're back in good shape. We actually had 7 different water events that came down. The first 2 were extremely large, and then after that we had 5 more water events that brought additional debris flow down. So it just kept piling up. We got to that condition, as we said, we just emergency wise, we needed to get that cleaned up and repaired. So it's all done. Right now, we've got the final invoice. We're at 400,000 from the contractor, and we repaired the Bongo short track. So shoreline trail that we're using to relocate the materials. So we're finished. But we have springtime coming up, so we're anticipating we could still see some additional debris springtime, rain time. So that may be some additional. We don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
So are we anticipating any more big rocks coming down to?
We're not any type of big debris flow from our consultant. He feels a lot of that bigger, heavier debris is kind of been washed out of there.
Right.
More or less it'd be water and smaller rocks.
Sediment?
Yeah. The last event we had about 2 weeks ago, it just deposited about 4 inches of just rock all across the bottom. So it'll probably be something.
Small rock or big rock?
Just, half
Pebbles?
inch to about 2 inch.
Okay, so, just to be clear, this 500,000 is just going to handle the subcontractor on this job or the contractor on this job.
Yes.
It doesn't handle any of the employee hours or the gas. It'd probably be diesel fuel for the equipment, the wear and tear on the equipment.
So far with our stormwater and our streets crew and our internal public works crew, we've been able to manage that with our current funding. If it funding wise, if it becomes, as we get towards the end of the year, I don't see it becoming a problem. If we do, that's where we would say, yeah, we may have a small funding short in our operating, and we'd be looking at accounts and maybe a discussion and administration on how we can make sure that we're taken care of. But for right now, I think we've got it covered.
Which I have to say, from a resident standpoint, I think that's pretty amazing that we could handle this and still juggle everything in order to stay within budget. But then we still have an emergency that we have to pay an outside contractor to get that all cleaned up so we can protect the residents of Southeast Provo. Thank you.
Our stormwater and our streets crew are amazing. So
I do not disagree with you. I think they are.
So we still need to clean up the kind of where the park is. We're letting that material still dry out because from the first debris flow that we pushed over there. And in the spring, summertime, we're going to use our stormwater streets crews to kind of get that cleaned up over there. That old channel.
And that still should be able to be within budget, right?
Great to schedule.
Shane, for those listening online, could you state your name and just?
My name is Shane Winter, the Public Services Director.
Any other questions?
I just have one. Jimmy, do we know of like a total of what this cost us, even though it's being absorbed within the budget? I just think it's good for the public to understand.
I don't know at this point, you know, we're just, because we just finished up that aspect of it, and there's more work to do, so. I haven't done an analysis of what we're doing today, but. We're tracking it so that we can.
All right, thank you. And you'll notify us so that we know how much. Just out of curiosity. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you.
We'll now take a brief break and reconvene at 2:05.
Recording in progress.
Okay, thank you. We'll now begin. Again, our next item is a resolution authorizing the issuance of transportation sales tax revenue bonds for
Not even the state.
construction of the airport terminal expansion. That'll be presented to us by Airport Director Brian Ferguson. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Appreciate the opportunity. Council, thank you for having us today. Just before we get into this, I want to explain what this is and what it's not before we get into this. So you'll see bond up there. As we've met with the administration and with Dan Follett, bond just sounds terrible. And so this is not new money. This is taking revenues that was already planned for the project, bringing them forward to today so we can use them for construction. In another scenario, we would call this an interfund loan, right? Which we've done several times, but just reading the room the last time we came for an interfund loan and the situation that some of our enterprise funds are in, we felt like this was the instrument to go ahead and pull some of these revenues forward to construction. So we are anticipating a bond, and for the really tough questions about what it is and how it's being done, I have Dan Follett, our Administrative Services Director, Brian Baker from Zions Bank, and Eric Hunter's our bond counsel. So they're all here to discuss the ins and outs of what the bond is, what the backing for that is, and I'll discuss that a little bit, but just want to make sure the council understands this is not something that was unanticipated. It's just timeline of the project. We're ready to move that those funding sources forward to construction. So just to start, a reminder, this is our current working version of our site plan, our ultimate site plan. Much of this may or may not be constructed with this expansion project. So a lot of that is obviously parking, paving areas that is currently gravel, and some other options for long-term parking that will come years down the road. You can't see it real well on this slide, so I'm going to advance to the next one in just a minute. But the building phasing also is what we're going to talk about mostly today is where we are in that process. But you'll remember a while back we came and talked about a loan from UDOT and their infrastructure bank, and that allowed us to complete construction on the apron. So where the aircraft park, that project was initiated in April. And so all of this gray area down here was anticipated for construction is now complete. We had an amazing contractor. We kind of chased the bottleneck with this project. Our parking space for aircraft was kind of the bottleneck for a good portion of the last 3 years. We now have a lot of parking for aircraft until next year and who knows when, but that is no longer the bottleneck. So we're really excited about that. The next bottleneck is what we're calling phase 2. But this is just some pictures of that apron. you go out there today, you can see beautiful concrete paving, and for an engineer, this is the kind of stuff we geek out about. The most beautiful thing in the world is a good paving job. So that's complete. We're really excited about that. So this is a little bit more zoomed in picture of the terminal itself and how we're breaking that up into funding or into phases. Phase 2 and phase 3 is what we're going to talk mostly about today. Phase 4 is in the future. That's the piece of the terminal that is anticipated to be funded with the county-backed bonds that we've talked about, the $78 million that the county put forward. Again, we're not pulling those bonds yet. We haven't really even started design of that phase yet. And there's some reasons for that. If you remember phase 2, really phase 2 and phase 3 should have gone together. And that was our intent, is to construct everything on the north side. But if you remember, there were some funding contingencies with some of the federal funding that we had a very short time frame to get construction documents in front of a contractor and get a bid from them. And so what we did is we carved off enough of the project that we felt like our design team could get ready and get a contractor on board and get bids open to satisfy the FAA's funding requirements to take advantage of that funding. So phase 2 under construction. If you go out there today, you won't see a whole lot different unless you're boarding an aircraft on the backside of the terminal, and we'll get through that. But so phase 2 is under contract. Layton Construction is that contractor, and phase 3 we're just finishing the final design on that, ready to start construction as well shortly. This is just a floor plan of phase 2 and 3 together. So this is the bottom floor. You can see phase 2 is mainly comprised of ticket counters, check-in counters. That was our next bottleneck after the aircraft parking, but then also the baggage handling system. So the TSA screening of your baggage. You can see it's kind of grayed back phase 2. A baggage makeup carousel is what that's called. So that's, once it's screened, the baggage goes onto that carousel. That's where the airline tugs pick it up and then take it out to the aircraft. The rest of phase 3 on the bottom level is actually being designed for the ultimate capacity build out of 10 gates. And so you'll see that baggage makeup carousel that's there on the far right side in phase 2. There'll actually be 2 of those in this white space here on at ultimate capacity of 10 gates. And then that area that's currently in phase 2 on the bottom level, that becomes an additional bag inspection station for the TSA. So this is the bottom level. We have storage space for concessions, also crew rooms for the service providers for airlines, the ones that are actually doing the work, throwing bags and all those sorts of things. Then on level 2, that's where your gate seating is, your restrooms, your concessions, your tenant space. And so again, 4 gates on this. This is a 2-level configuration now. So everything we've experienced so far at the terminal is at single level. But you can see there on the far right, we have escalators, stairways that will actually bring you up to a 2nd level, and your board aircraft, those will all be jet bridge boarded. And so all of the new gates will be, it's anticipated will board from a jet bridge from your typical 2nd level configuration. So we're pretty excited about this. Like I say, we're just finishing the final design on phase 3. Phase 2 is already under construction. In order to start construction, this is mainly what you'll see if you go out there today. Again, pretty unimpressive as far as look and feel, and but it's all temporary. So one of the challenges we had is our baggage. Once your baggage is screened by TSA, it leaves the north side of the building and gets picked up by tugs. Well, it's really hard to keep that process going and build a building around it. So we had to figure out a way to get the baggage stream as well as an emergency exit away from coming out of that north side of the building. So that's what a lot of this does have a pointer on it, right? Okay. So you'll see, we actually rerouted the baggage train out the west side of the building. And then it'll come here where it'll get picked up. And then the passengers actually will come in. And we created a temporary gate 4 and 5 seating area. Where that's where, if you're on gates 4 or 5, that's where you'll board the aircraft from. That gets all of that process out of the construction area. It allows our contractor to just move forward with construction and not have to worry about stopping when baggage tugs and all of those other things come and go. So, and then just an aerial view. This was just as recent as last week of those facilities. Those will be in operation in about 2 weeks. So we'll make that switch over to where gates 4 and 5 are boarding out of there. And then you'll actually start to see some demolition and starting with those deep foundation work. So here's just some renderings of what that's going to look like. So if you were at the current gate 4, the far north end of our terminal looking north, this is what it would look like going up the escalator. What's currently the seating area for gate 4 will be some concession space for a cafe or a convenience store, or Starbucks, or who knows, whatever else wants to be there. And then some opportunity for some artwork or just some softening elements above that. This is kind of mid concourse down looking to the east. So the gate seating's on the left side of this corridor. Just an area you can get away and hook up your laptop or do whatever you want to do there. This is the far north end looking east towards Mount Timpanogos. This is going to be a pretty awesome spot in the terminal. You're going to have a wide open second level view of that whole Wasatch Range. And then to the left would be the far north gate location. This is just an exterior elevation looking southwest towards the lake. You're seeing both phase 2 and phase 3. And then just your jet bridges on the opposite side. Must have snowed when they did this because Sports Park's covered in snow. So this is the critical piece as we move forward with construction, and part of the reason we're here today. So this picture on the right is the process we have to go to mitigate for liquefaction and earthquake seismic. So what that is, that machine goes down about 30 feet is what our design shows. And it essentially pounds a gravel column down in there on a stiff clay layer that's 30 feet down. And as they pull that up and ram it back down and pull it up and ram it back down, it creates a stone column about 24 inches in diameter. And they do that on a 4-foot grid. So 3,000 of these across the footprint of phase 2 and another about that many on phase 3. And so you can imagine this type of equipment's pretty specialized, and it takes quite a bit to mobilize in and out. And so even though we've we've split the project up into phase 2 and 3, the idea is that we start with phase 2 and you wouldn't know the difference between phase 2 and 3 because we want this equipment to stay here and to continue its work, obviously just starting in phase 2. So that's what the project team's working towards to get an early footing foundation permit. That foundation work will be completed mid-February. And so we'll be ready to start this foundation work at that time on phase 3. So with the bond, and Eric and Dan and others can talk more about this, but obviously the resolution would come back to council on the 16th. And then there's a 30-day period of, Brian, what's it called?
30-day contest period.
30-day contest period where residents could sign my understanding is you gather signatures in opposition or whatever. And so we really can't close on that bond until the middle of January, which that's why we're coming now, is so that we can get that in place so that we can get a contract going and start seamless progression through the project of construction here. So you've seen this slide before. This is one that kind of just encapsulates the funding for the project. So this slide would have been shown in presentations in February. And again, there's this Provo City piece here on the far right side. It was anticipated there would be some sort of interim financing needed, or bridge funding, as Scott's called it, to get our revenue sources to construction. So again, reading the room last time, we felt like the option was probably better to go out to a revenue bond. Our federal funding is on track. In fact, we've gotten a little bit more than we had anticipated. Our state funding's right where we thought it would be. And then the Provo City funding that we'll talk about a little bit more in detail where that's coming from, has actually also gone up a little bit. And then Utah County, a huge portion of this, which this 45.5 million, that's a guesstimate on what we'll actually be able to principal on the bond that we'll issue. And that will likely be 9 to 12 months from now before we're ready to issue that bond, and start on construction on the south side. But overall, again, right in line with what we've planned. And then this just allows us to go to construction today rather than wait 6-7 years and be subject to increased prices, which we've seen significant price increase from phase one or the original terminal till now. So the backing for this bond, and this is where Brian and Dan can talk details, the backing for this bond when we put it out is actually 1/4 cent sales tax dedicated to transportation funding. So currently, since 2019, we've had this revenue source. It actually has been helping to pay for the original terminal project. The way I understand it, Jimmy, we just paid our last payment. So phase one of the terminal project, 3 years after opening, all debt's been paid off on that, and we're able to use that same revenue source to go ahead and help us now build the expansion. So on an annual basis, you're about $2.5 million in that. There are some other things that money's being put towards at the moment. And so you'll see how much of that we're anticipating to put towards this repayment. But then also we have the passenger facility charge. And if any of you really check the details of your airline ticket, you'll see this on there. So this is a federally authorized fee, up to $4.50 per passenger. It's collected by the airlines, and it's the best way I can describe it. It's kind of like an impact fee. It can only be used for FAA approved projects. So we collect it for a specific purpose, and we have to spend it for that purpose. And so that's what this, and again, that's based on emplanements. So as our emplanements go up, that funding source grows. As emplanements go down, then that shrinks a little bit. But we're right around that 2.5 million a year in passenger facility charge. Now, this won't actually be used as the backing for the bond, and Dan can talk about why that is. It's not considered a stable source, I guess. So the sales tax will actually back the bond for our creditors, but our plan is to actually use it to pay it off as early as possible, so that we're minimizing that debt. And so you can see 1/4 cent sales tax starting next budget year, just over 2 million a year. And then FY29, we start with that PFC. Currently, part of that PFC is going towards our snow removal equipment building. That's why you're not seeing any of that in 27 or 28, because it's already obligated in those years. So our intent is to pay this $20 million bond off in as quick as 7-8 years. Now, again, I'll let Dan talk about the parameters of the bond and all that sort of thing. So Dan, I'll turn it over to you now if you care to talk about some of the ins and outs of the resolution. But while he's coming up, are there any questions about why we're doing what we're doing now? Anything on the project itself? Yes.
So earlier iterations for the plans had shown some covered bicycle parking, but I didn't see that on this. Where's that at?
Yeah, so we've gone back and
we are flying out in 3 weeks, and I don't want to leave my bike parked outside in the weather.
Understood. So we've gone back and forth on where the best place is for that. So I'd actually like to talk to you about that.
Okay.
Some of the locations we have identified aren't great. because they're too far away or they're hidden or so it might actually end up on the south side where things are a little bit more open. But let's catch you offline and I want your input on that. So
It's a small thing, but I actually do ride my bike to the airport to fly to visit my parents.
yeah, no,
I've done it multiple times.
It's something we're planning for. It's just trying to determine from a user's perspective, because to me, I'm not a bike user, and to me, you could park it just about anywhere, but I know that's not ideal. And so right now we've actually contemplated 3 different locations with this site with phase 2 and 3, but they're all not very visible. They're all kind of tucked at, kind of back away. So the current thinking is that'll end up on the south side in phase 4. But let's chat afterwards.
Right. Thank you. I'm very happy about the rest of this though. So this is my little question.
Are a lot of people biking there, Rachel? Do you?
I often see other bikes there. I don't know if they're for employees or people who are traveling, but it is a challenge because a lot of people don't want to leave their bikes outside for even like weekend trips. I usually do it if it's like a 3 or 4 day trip. I feel okay with that. But for longer than that, most people don't want to leave their bikes out unless they can put them in a bike locker or there's some sort of shelter.
Interesting. Brian, I assume we're collecting the full 450 up to authorized up to 450.
Yeah, we've been doing that for almost 2 years.
Okay.
Collecting that fee. So again, right now, that full annual revenue is going towards paying off the snow removal equipment building that we're constructing. But again, in that schedule, then that would be rolled over to help pay off this as quickly as possible.
Councilor Bogdan?
Brian, I have a couple questions for you. So when do we anticipate phase 2 and 3 to be finished?
So our contractor schedule right now is spring of 27. So April, May 27.
So in another year and a half? Do we have like extensions for weather or anything like that?
They've built all of that into their schedule. Like I say, that's well within our contract requirements. Can't remember the exact duration that we gave them. But yeah, they're accounting for winter work. They don't slow down. They have contingencies for cold weather protection of concrete and other things. So again, there are people at Layton and other big contractors. That's all they do is scheduling. And so they've thought through this now for at least a year and the sequencing. And so we feel pretty confident that in every project they've ever done,
It's coming on time.
it's come in on time. So
Okay. And what about phase 4?
phase 4. So again, we have a design team that's working feverishly to get everything ready. We essentially had 5 months to have from concept to final construction plans for phase 2. As soon as construction documents were done, they started on phase 3. That's our push now. As soon as construction documents are finalized for phase 3, we're going to start deep into the concept planning and design on phase 4.
And are we expanding the parking lot?
Yes. So if you go back to that first slide, that brownish area, that was all taking the gravel parking lot that's there now and paving it and finishing it out. So that comes in phase 4 as well.
Pretty full, I mean, as it is now, but we're not expanding it past its current footprint, even with the chain link.
In that slide, maybe I'll go back real quick. We do have some areas east of the fire academy that are planned for potential expansion. That's not being contemplated yet. But that's something that we can finish a little bit at a time as that need arises. So with the project currently, this is rental car parking. So in order to build the south side, it displaces our rental car parking. And so that's actually moved here, and then we just pave where people are already parking in the gravel. So again, based on our projections, that doesn't get us to full capacity at 10 gates, but it puts us down the road a good ways.
Okay, so there'll still be parking issues possibly.
Eventually, right? Right now, if you were to go out there today, so actually this part of the parking lot never gets parked in. It's paved, no one parks there.
Oh, okay.
So they're parking essentially in this area. and nothing else gets parked in. And
Oh.
so it appears closer, I guess, but if you're ever looking for a paid parking spot, just go to the south end of the lot, there's plenty of spots, so.
Good to know. But too, I mean, when Sandy did this parking lot over here, even out the tailings areas kind of, you know, if you paint those lines, well,
Yeah.
it gives you more spots, right?
Yeah, and
So
we've
I think-
painted those and we have, like I say, it's pretty impressive how the paint stays on that gravel. Again, it's just not a great condition for roller bags. But again, people don't seem to mind it if they're passing up a paved spot, but we know that's part of phase 4. So that might even come ahead of phase 4.
To pave it off?
Yeah, that one's very much weather dependent, so site construction, we can't do too much during the winter time. We can do utilities and lighting and conduits for that kind of stuff, but that's kind of a summertime activity, so.
We don't expect any of those conduits and stuff out in the parking lot, right?
Just for lighting.
Does it not have lighting now?
It does in the areas that are finished, but obviously we don't have lighting out through here, which we would have to add, and that stuff you can do in the winter time, so.
And thank you, and I appreciate the concept that you would pay it off early is what goal is. Like,
and again, that's not the story we're telling our creditors, right? And Dan can tell you that. Obviously there's prepayment penalties, which we're considering as we go out to these bonds, but that is our plan. If we have to stick it away in an account, the revenue's there. It's just, we're trying to minimize interest.
kind of like what we did with the iProvo thing.
Sorry?
What we did with the iProvo thing, we just
Yeah.
stick it in the account and keep on paying it, even though we've gotten all the money to pay it off.
Counselor McKay.
Is it phase 4 that will have the customs international wing?
It is.
And yeah, like Becky, I've had questions from citizens about having that gravel part paved.
Yeah.
So that is lined up for,
It's a priority for
Okay.
sure. It's just, like I say, chasing the bottleneck, so to speak, and making sure that we're constructing in a economical way and letting our contractor build in a concise area rather than jumping all around.
in the past, you've had concerns, or there's a problem with the parking and paying and how that all worked. Did that all get worked out? Do you have a system now? That
We
you
have a
like
system
well?
that works really, really well. Ski Data is the vendor that we use. It's been a dream.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you, Brian. Dan?
Thank you. Brian covered most of the details. In terms of a process, the plan is to bring to the council in their meeting, their regularly scheduled meeting on the 16th, 3 things. One would be a public hearing regarding the bonds, that the council could consider any feedback received during that public hearing. The second would be the resolution itself, which basically sets the parameters for issuing the bonds. And then the third would be an appropriation of the money so that it could be used. In terms of the resolution, when I talk about the parameters, it would be for $20 million, the interest rate not to exceed 6%, and a discount not to be more than 2%. We are working with Zions Bank Public Finance on this, and they will work to market these bonds once the resolution is approved during that 30-day contest period. And then once that period closes mid-January, then we would be in a position to close on those bonds. We are going to do what's called a private placement as opposed to a competitive bid process for a couple of reasons. But one is that Zions Bank feels like with the size of the bonds and the term of the bond, that might be the best approach, and that there are multiple financial institutions, most of them are regional sized banks, that would be very interested in this issuance. And the other reason we would like to do it that way is we hope to negotiate to get as much flexibility as possible in the repayment schedules, to where that if we want to pay off early, like Brian described, which we are planning to do, that we could do that without any prepayment penalty. So that's part of the goal with that. Let's see, what else was I? So that's basically, although the bonds would be secured by, as Brian mentioned, by the 1/4 cent sales tax, as opposed to the passenger fee. There's nothing that prevents us or requires us to pay off the bonds directly with the sales tax revenue and or not use the passenger fee. So we have that flexibility going forward. However, the sales tax revenue is just viewed as a very, very good credit. And we think that that will translate into the best interest rate possible when we market the bonds. And for instance, the two issuances that the city's done so far, well, historically, where we've backed it with sales tax revenue, they actually have a AAA rating at Provo City. So we anticipate that they'll be well received in the marketplace based on that credit. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
Zach, well, Brian, does anyone else have anything to present relative to that, or only if there are questions, or?
Yeah, just if you have questions now, we'll come back on the 16th.
Okay.
For the resolution.
Those three items.
And we should have some details at that point on the actual resolution. That's what we spoke right here to help us.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Brian. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. All right, next we have a presentation explaining FEMA floodplain map changes in Provo. Presented by Stormwater Engineer Jacob O'Brien. Hello, Jacob, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Wanted to take just a minute and go through where we're at in the FEMA floodplain mapping updates. So we know that these floodplain map changes are coming. This has been in the works for many years. There have been multiple presentations to council about this. We've had several open houses where we've invited public. We've actually sent out hundreds of mailers to residents and property owners to invite them to these open houses. And you may have seen in the packet there's a long history of studies, appeals, other studies to finally get to this point. And this is a countywide update. So it's not just Provo City that this is happening to. And this is something that is being done by FEMA. It's, you could say, imposed on the city. We do choose to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, but this is basically a FEMA update. So why the change? By and large, the change is because the levees were not built to current standard. And they have roots growing through them. We know that they do offer some protection when we have high flows. It's not that they aren't there, but when they're modeled by FEMA, they pretend the embankment doesn't exist. So you can imagine any flows held in that channel just go all over the place. There are also some changes to the Utah Lake water surface elevation. It's actually coming down a couple of feet, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. And FEMA periodically updates their maps. They, every 15 or 20 years, they'll update the map for a community, and that's part of what they're doing here. So I wanted to show the current map, what we have today, and this kind of orange rusty color. There is some risk there, but this is outside what we call the special flood hazard area. In other words, if you're in this area, you're not subject to mandatory flood insurance purchase requirements. If you're in the blue, you are. And so you can see we've got all of this part of town, and I'll kind of flip back and forth here so you can see the current and the proposed. Going to the proposed, you see a lot of this orange area is now in the blue. The airport, as well as a lot of the homes here west of Geneva Road that are adjacent to the river. Also, if you look in this area, you'll see the lake recedes just a little bit. If you go back and forth, that's because of that water surface elevation change. So what do the changes mean? We will have homes and businesses in the floodplain or in that special flood hazard area. Folks that have a federally backed mortgage will need to purchase flood insurance. And this is an estimate, but it may be $1,500 to $2,000 a year, depending on your proximity to the river or if you're far away from it. There's no requirement for a building owner or a homeowner to do anything. It's not like they have to retrofit or make any changes. If they do want to make a major remodel or do a major remodel to their home that exceeds 50% of the value of the home, they have to bring the entire structure up to current FEMA standards. The Utah Lake elevation is being reduced, and that does help some developers. Is they're trying to say you've got a huge area out here and you've got to bring in a massive amount of fill over 30 acres. And now you get to bring it 2 feet lower than what you would have had to. There is some savings potential for those type of projects. Again, I wanted to reiterate that this is something coming from FEMA. The city does choose to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. And by doing that, we're able to receive funding, say, for disaster relief or emergencies. And if we were not participating in that, we can lose that funding. General timeline. So number 1 and 2 have already happened. The preliminary maps were issued in 2024, and that's what we were just looking at. There was an appeal period that ended in March of 2025. We did submit an appeal to FEMA. We disagreed with several of the technical aspects of the mapping, and that was rejected by FEMA. This month, we expect to receive a letter of final determination. And basically, that's FEMA saying, hey, the maps are going to be adopted. We finalized everything. We're not making any changes. And it gives us, you could call it a grace period, but basically 6 months from that date, the maps will be officially adopted. And we anticipate that being June of 2026. I've heard that due to the recent government shutdown, that could slide a month or two, but so far, this is the date that we are anticipating. We're working on some things to update the maps to correct the channel alignment. I'm going to go back here real quick to where we're at. You can see that the channel still follows the old alignment. And right now it actually goes here out to the delta. So we'd like to get that corrected. Thanks. We're working to discover what other things can be done to help residents and businesses. And we're here to help them if they need to navigate any of these processes of trying to get out of the floodplain, but ultimately it's up to each individual property owner to do that. And we will keep residents apprised of what's coming out. Yeah.
So the appeal that was rejected, I'm curious if you could say more about that. 2 things specifically. What was in the appeal that concerns us still or should concern us still in terms of what's being imposed on us? And is there no other avenue to appeal? It just seemed like a very bureaucratic and arbitrary decision and kind of a tone deaf
Rules of procedure.
talk to the
right?
hand kind of response
Agreed.
that didn't really help us at all. So I was just kind of curious what position that puts us in practically in terms of what
we appealed the hydrology, so the flow rate, how long that water goes through the river. We know that it's part of a managed system, but the way that it was modeled is if it comes down for a very long time. We weren't fighting against the levees being modeled the way that they were modeled, because we know that's the FEMA standard, but there were some methodology aspects of how the levees were, how the methodology was applied. For example, the water surface elevation was able to go out at an elevation even lower than the levees or lower than the natural ground. And so it caused water to, in the model, spill out in places where it wouldn't normally go. And I've got Ben Rood here, who's our consultant that helped with the appeal. What am I missing, Ben? I know there are a few other things.
Yeah, the other big piece. I'm Ben Rood with WSP. I helped put the appeal together. So another piece of that is the storm drain network that exists there on the west side. So we know there's some large diameter pipes that convey a lot of that stormwater away from these residents and then down towards the airport into the moat. And that large storm drain network system was not included in their modeling efforts. So it does alleviate flooding if you put the water underground in pipes, and that's what we do, but they did not include a lot of those pipes into their system. And so therefore filling it up like a bathtub instead of letting it drain out naturally through the pipes. It's one of the things we looked at as well.
So my question on the appeal though, so we didn't meet the procedural formalities that were required. Were those requirements clear and apparent before we submitted this, or was this like a gotcha? We had this secret hidden rule that we didn't tell you about.
Yeah, so I can talk about it a little bit too. So yeah, the requirements are there stated in the guidance by FEMA. However, they only give you 90 days to meet those requirements. And you can imagine if it's taken them 6, 7 years to do all of this backup data, prepare everything, get it the way they want it, and then they give you 90 days to do the same thing. It's going to be very hard to meet that level of standard that they're holding you to within that 90-day appeal period. And so we did the best we could, but inevitably their reviewers go through and nitpick at every little thing. And if you miss any T or I or anything like that, it's grounds for rejection. And so that's basically what they did, is they went through it and found reasons to reject it, reasons why it wouldn't meet standard. And so within that 90-day period, it's pretty hard to meet every single detail. So
that's really interesting. So it sounds like we knew that the appeal was deficient. It was the best we could do in the limited time period. And because there were shortened time periods, the federal government was essentially creating a situation in which it would be impossible for anybody to do a proper appeal.
That's correct.
Okay.
in some ways, yes, yeah.
All right.
Any other questions? I had basically finished the presentation. Yes.
Jacob, how many people did we have go to these meetings? Did we have a good turnout? Was there not very many?
We didn't have a great turnout. We sent out about 650 or so mailers, not just to the ones that were impacted there on the west side, but all along the Provo River. Probably had 20 people or so, give or take, aside from those that were there putting on the presentation, on people from FEMA.
Were those held here, those public open houses?
At the rec center.
The rec center.
So, I haven't heard any feedback about this for a long time because this has been going on for a couple of years, right? And when it first came out, I heard a lot of feedback, and now I haven't heard hardly any. Are you guys hearing complaints from the residents, or are they just pretty much accepted the inevitable, or?
I haven't heard much either way. When we've had the meetings, people had a lot of questions about why it's happening, but in general seemed accepting that they know it's coming if they live right next to the rivers. I think most people that are located right there have an understanding as to why it's happening.
Well, yeah, and most of the feedback I got was, okay, we'd prefer if they've got to take out the trees, we prefer they just leave it alone and we pay the flood insurance because we enjoy the trees. We don't want them ripped out and derooted to, rebuild a dike. But, okay. And so then over and over and over again, especially with the Smith's property being built on, I hear about the deficiency of the stormwater system in West Provo. And that was one of the reasons why the neighborhood went against the Smiths the first time that it wanted to come in like 30 years ago. Have we reconstructed the stormwater system in the last 30 years that it is sufficient to handle any kind of event or building or anything like that?
So there has been a lot that's been reconstructed, and there's still work to do to be able to convey all those flows. And there are parts of Franklin that we've recently rebuilt, and we plan on extending that further north to be able to capture other parts of that same neighborhood. You know, that if you see a huge storm, all the water's collected in those deep gutters on the side, and it does drain, but so yes, a lot of work has been done, but there's still more needed.
But that's the Franklin neighborhood, which isn't west of the freeway. I mean, if we're looking at like Center Street in Geneva and west, does that have sufficient stormwater drainage?
We get to where,
Because I mean, even some of those neighborhoods right there, like right below the river to Center Street, west of Geneva. I have to get my bearings. Is this Geneva? Is that? Anyway, this is Center. So I mean, this area right here, especially this area. These neighborhoods right here. Over where the former fire chief lives,
Miguel.
Pardon? Not Miguel, the one before that. Where the one that everybody puts their signs on his yard. On Center Street. Anyway, yeah, that neighborhood is super old. And I can't imagine that any work has been done on the storm water, have they, Shane?
So Shane Winters with Provo Public Works Division Director of Public Works. So that area, based on our current master plan, is in itself is sufficient. The existing system is sufficient. Where it has been historically deficient is from there to the lake, right? The conveyance of kind of new development as it starts to build out is deficient. There isn't, it used to run through irrigation systems on that.
Okay.
We have installed a large, very large pipe system now, and we are getting very close to being up to what we would consider our requirements from our stormwater master plan. And that is down 11th West. Geneva itself has a big long ditch. So in the master plan, as development happens, we will pipe that whole system, which will continue to allow that further development. That was still kind of the deficient system moving forward. We've got through the park, the new regional park, we put a new big pipe system all through Lakeview Parkway. We've got a large pipe system now that conveys all of that west area around the airport and takes care of that area. And then we're putting in right now a pretty large pump system because it is a bathtub that will take on the south west portion of the airport.
Over here.
Southeast, I'm sorry. It is right here.
Okay.
So we're putting in right now we have one pump system that's up on the north side of the airport, just kind of north of the runways. We're putting in a secondary big pump system, and we'll be finishing that. We'll be finishing up here in the spring. That then will convey that area through the airport, all the commercial areas, so that that system, as that develops, it will be taken care of. So the west side, I can say, is we're really getting ahead of being able to take care of stuff. These new development standards that will become because of the floodplain changes will also help because development will have to build to certain requirements, which also includes stormwater.
And they'll be up to FEMA standards.
They will, yes, so floodplain standard and those things. So we're getting ahead of that. From stormwater itself, a substantial amount of our funds have been out on the west side, and taking care of these issues.
So that those apartments that are coming in on Center in Geneva, that should be sufficient with stormwater that we're not gonna see any flooding to the west. Or if there is an event, because some of these properties are over here, there is an event where that river floods. We're still gonna be okay with the stormwater because it can still drain.
Right.
Just have to sandbag if something happens.
And a lot of that, because it's low lying and kind of, like I said about, we have pump systems. So we have a few pump systems that are out there that take care of that. So it actually pumps as it comes over, we pump that back over.
Is it like the open pump house on the end of Fifth West? Is that what we're looking at? We have pump stations like that here.
Yeah, and we have, like I said, we have a few along the river, because everything does sit lower than kind of the lake. We gotta pump it over. There's like 3 along the river that we have that actually are continuously pumping groundwater and stormwater. And it's sufficient to handle the current conditions.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jacob, back to your slides.
I'm actually at the end. I was gonna say any questions and we already started on, but
Okay.
are there any other questions?
Any other questions?
One last thing I wanted to mention is sometime in the next few months, during that 6-month period, we as a community need to adopt the new maps. And so there would be a floodplain ordinance update for that. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you. We'll now have a brief break and reconvene at 3:05.
Recording in progress.
Okay. We'll reconvene our council work session. Our next item is an ordinance amending Provo City Code Chapter 9.51.010 regarding wildlife urban interface maps. This will be presented by our Fire Marshal, Lynn Schofield.
Thank you. Glad to be with you today. We'd like to just go over, I'm gonna do truth in advertising right off the bat. The title slides that we're gonna talk about maps, we're not gonna talk about maps today, but it's coming. But we are gonna talk about the Wildland Urban Interface Code and how it relates to the House Bill 48, which passed last year and is now imposed some requirements for municipalities. So I'm going to break the House bill down into a couple of sections. So I'm going to tease you with part of it first, and then I'll finish it with part of it at the end. We're trying to keep this out of the weeds, and we can get in the weeds pretty easily. So the goal is to not get in the weeds. House Bill 48, which came about primarily as a result of some of the massive wildfires that have happened in the Western United States and Hawaii over the last few years, imposed some new modifications into how we deal with wildfire in Utah. And Utah is a very big wildfire state. And so part of that is to adopt the 2006 Wildland Urban Interface Code. There are later editions of the code. I will tell you that currently they are beginning debate, and it's going to be a fun debate because codes are always a fun debate. They're currently entertaining debate on the 2024 code. But at this time, we're only dealing with the 2006 Wildland Urban Interface Code. The additional requirements that it brings to us as a municipality is that we have to adopt the 2006 Wildland Urban Interface by January 1st. All right. And the reason for that is we are what's considered a participating entity. So we provide wildfire support resources throughout the state. We have our wildland team that goes out, provides firefighting stuff. We do fuel mitigation stuff, and all of that's gone together to help us be a participating entity in the wildland urban interface, or in the wildland program. As a result of that, we get some benefits as a city, in that if we have a fire that starts on Provo City property or within the boundaries of Provo City and extends out into the wildland urban interface, as a result of that, part of our labor kicks in so that the wildland, the state picks up the costs. All right. So for us, that's a pretty big benefit. So we want to continue to be a participating entity. And to do that, we have to adopt the 2006 interface code. We also are going to have to create a boundary map. That's going to be done in conjunction with the state map. The state map's not done yet. So we're not going to propose a map today because we don't know what the state's done, because it's not out yet. And we certainly want to have some input because there's some local historical knowledge that we have within our organization where we may want to make some changes or recommend some changes into that map. So we'll be back later after the state map comes back. Once we get the state map, we'll be back with a proposed Provo City wildland urban interface boundary map. All right. So that's what we're going to do. So that's the first part. So why do we have the wildland urban interface code? What are we trying to accomplish? What we're trying to accomplish is basically three things. We would really like for the wildland, a fire that originates in a wildland setting, to not come down and impact our city. All right. We also would like for a fire that occurs within our city boundary, even in a residential neighborhood, to not extend into the wildland urban interface. And if we do have a fire that either starts within our city in the wildland urban interface or starts in the interface and moves into our city, we would prefer to not have a conflagration as we've seen in other places. That's what the WUI code is designed to prevent, is fires moving in from the interface into the municipality, fires moving out of the municipality, and conflagrations when fires do occur. This is a great example of a draw. That's our wildland urban interface. And you can see we've got houses up along that ridge line. If we had a fire that began in the middle or bottom of that draw, those houses would be in imminent risk. And so we're trying to do what we can to prevent that risk. Now, this is a logical continuation of the things that we're already doing as a participating entity. We already have a very good, effective fuels mitigation program. We have that seasonal program that comes out. We are in, I think, our 4th year. And they've been out. They've done some really good work in some of our most significant wildland urban interface places. The Timpview Draw, the Lover's Lane, 4800 North. They've done some really good work to reduce the risk of wildland fires. We also have a very significant discharge restricted area that we've adopted by ordinance. So we prevent ignition sources in fireworks during our summer fireworks shoots. And to mitigate the consequences of that very large discharge restricted area, we've opened up our parks and have a very successful fireworks in the parks program, which brings those ignition sources into a safer place, and has factually reduced our wildland fires from fireworks to virtually none. All right. And then last but not least, I can't read my own things. Oh, yeah. And we already, sorry about that. Should have brought my reading glasses. We also incorporated some of the requirements currently in the 2006 Wildland Urban Interface Code are incorporated into our hillside ordinance. So we have developable areas still in our city that are going to gradually move up further up into the interface. And so we already have called out, as those projects are coming in, we've already called out the requirements for building into the wildland interface in terms of defensible space and fire protection features as they're looking to build. All right. I'm going to move over here. Now, as we're adopting code, it's important to note that the Wildland Urban Interface Code is going to be only for new construction. The construction that's already in the permitting process or already vested in the system is bound by the code that's in place. So there's a few that urban or the critical hillside ordinance has got things in place already because we put it as part of that. But this is only going to be for new construction. So people who already have existing structures in the wildland urban interface zone as it's identified by the state. When we publish our map, they're not going to have to go out and bring their buildings up to code, to the code. They're going to be grandfathered in. The exception to that is if there is a change, and I'm going to give you the example. If somebody's up in the wildland in the WUI zone and they have a wood shake roof and their roof wears out, it's time to replace their roof. We're going to require them to put in a non-combustible roof. So they're going to change their wood shakes out for either a metal roof or a non-combustible roof. Other than that, we're not going to jump in. We're not going to enforce this code on existing structures. That's not how the code's designed. All right, we want to make that really clear right off the bat. Yep.
Okay, so in one of the presentations today, they said if it had a 50% or more remodel of the home, then they would have to bring it up to like FEMA standards. Is this the same thing? If they remodel their house and it's 50% or more, they have to bring it up to police standards?
So this is where it gets really tricky because it would be the 50% remodel is typically the standard that we use where you'd have to bump up to the current code. And the chief's going to correct me. That's why I brought him. Where the wildland urban interface code is different from the regular code is the fire protection features in the wildland code have more to do with the exterior of the building, and people don't typically remodel 50% of their exterior. So and I'm shooting from the hip here, and I could be fired by the end of the day, but shooting from the hip, if they do a remodel inside their house and they do a 50% remodel in their house, but they don't touch the exterior of the house, I don't anticipate that we're going to require them to come to that code. If they decide they're going to pull off all of their siding and they're going to do a 50% remodel of their house, the outside of their house, then we're going to talk. But I think it's important to know that most of the wildland stuff is exterior protection, and unless they're messing with the exterior, my opinion is that we would not require them to come to the code. Encourage them, yes. Require them, no. Okay. Thank you. All right. So we're not going to read the code. You'll be happy to know in 25 minutes, we're not going to read the code. We're just going to go through it really quickly. These are the chapters of the wildland code. Number 1 is the administration. This is all code speak. It's just like every other building and fire code. Gives the fire chief the authority to appoint a code official, which can be either the fire chief or his designee. And that person interprets the code. That provides the ability for the code official to come up with some alternatives for compliance. Alternative means and methods when the designated provisions of the code just don't fit, which is consistent with the other code, the building and fire code currently. It does provide for a board of appeals. So if you question those, you have the ability to do that. It also provides for doing plan reviews for people impacted by this code, and also some activities which would not be, they would have to pull a permit in that zone. Chapter 2 is definitions. As you know, every code has definitions specific to that code. And I'd like to tell you they're all similar across the board, but it's not true. And then chapter 3 is the wildland urban interface area. So at some point after adopting this code, this body is going to have to declare the wildland urban interface area of Provo City. That will happen after the state finishes their map with our input, and we bring back and present a map to you. Once you declare that wildland urban interface area, then a map will be published. It's already in process, and that will be the wildland urban interface area that this code applies to. And then as part of that, every 3 years, citizens will have the opportunity to go in and appeal their status as being in the wildland urban interface. And we understand that because as development moves further out, the interface moves further out. Chapter 4 covers the wildland fire requirements. This is talking about road widths, road grades, how steep their roads can be, how wide they are, how wide their driveways are, and how they have to mark these things so that we can find them. It also provides for water supply requirements. You know, where are we going to get water to fight the fire? Do they have hydrants? Do we have the correct hydrant spacing? Are we going to be drafting ponds, swimming pools, things like that? Are there drafting sources up there? And if so, where are they and how are they marked? Are there going to be tanks up there? And then if there are tanks, there has to be an area of defensible space around the tank. And there also has to be a consistent, reliable power supply for any pumps that service that tank. And then again, specific site requirements for each individual development. Chapter 5 is the special construction. They're going to break this down into 3 classifications. Those classifications are determined by defensible space, the available water supply, and the third one is the topography. Are they downslope or upslope? Where do they fit on the hillside? And those are going to determine the severity of the risk for that particular structure, and that's what's going to kick in what requirements are required by the WUI code. Some of those specific requirements are the additional fire resistance requirements for exterior walls. The house that you live in currently, unless you're up in the interface and built to the interface code, the sheetrock within your home is built there to keep the fires within the compartment that is that bedroom, the kitchen, the living room, whatever. There is no fire resistance built into the exterior of your home. When you go into the interface, that will change. If you go into the interface, there'll be some fire resistance requirements for the exterior of your home. Also, decks, soffits is going to require some fire resistance construction as well. The type of glass they can put in, your doors are going to have to be solid core. They can't be hollow core. And again, that's to give you a fire resistance rating for the exterior. The goal is to keep the fire from moving from house to house and from moving into the house. Vents is the simple one. They're going to require some screening of vents so you are unable to get embers into your attic space. And that screening is defined by the code as to the spacing on that. And then how we can do replacements of existing roofs. Other fire protection requirement, or chapter 6 is the fire protection requirements. Fire sprinkler systems, as you know, Utah is not a real fire sprinkler friendly place. It's okay. But in the wildland urban interface, the road widths, the water supply, and the road grade still allow us to require fire sprinklers. If their grades and widths and water supply are not sufficient to provide adequate protection. But as a general rule, in a lot of other jurisdictions, fire sprinklers are just required a carte blanche in the interface. That is not true here in Utah. Personal defensible space around your home, community defensible space around common areas within the development. Who's going to maintain that and making sure that it's maintained? Spark arresters on things like wood burning stoves and chimneys so that we're not sending sparks up into the interface. We don't have a lot of this problem here, but the large propane tanks that are used to power or to fuel some of these homes, there's defensible space required around those as well, and specific. They can't paint them black so they blend in. And that's all defined by the code. And then where you can store combustible storage interface, most common one that they're looking at is firewood. We can't have you storing your firewood up next to your house or under your deck. In addition to that's the 6 chapters of the code. It's only 38 pages long. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. Go ahead.
Okay, so number 1, how much is estimated is this going to increase the cost of the homes that are up there?
The ones that the existing,
The new ones.
I keep myself intentionally ignorant.
Okay.
So I have no idea. I have, as a general rule, since I became the fire marshal, you either have to have a sprinkler system or you don't. And I honestly couldn't even venture a guess.
And who is going to monitor and enforce these regulations?
So
like the upkeep of the open space and the defensible space and all that community space.
That's going to be done by the fire department, and we're gonna show you another place a little bit further in the presentation that will address that more specifically.
Okay.
And
how much is it going to cost?
We're gonna address that a little more specifically to my knowledge. Right, but is it going to add cost if you're building in the interface? It is, right? Because we typically don't require fire resistance exterior components. So yes, it's going to increase costs a percentage, but I'm not in construction, so I couldn't tell you what that is.
The county need to do this as well?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Because they have houses in these areas.
Yes, the county actually plays a very big role in this. And again, I'm going to push you off for just a second because we are going to talk about the county here in just a second. But yes, the counties have to adopt this as well. All right, in addition to any other questions before I jump on it? All right, in addition to the 6 primary chapters, there are some appendices. Appendix A talks about vegetation control. And that's talking about vegetation control around access roads, trails, power lines, things like that. It also gives the ability to restrict access on some of those roads to the Fire Code Authority, and the Fire Code Authority has the ability to restrict ignition sources, which we already do every year when we get dried out. Appendix B is talking about vegetation management plans. It also has Utah-specific fire-resistant vegetation schedule that we can use as we're working with property owners as they're talking about defensible space, helping them get the correct vegetation to help them maintain the erosion control and still reduce their fire risk. Michael, can you get me again? I'm not moving.
Good.
Okay. And then Appendix C is just the form that we use. So that's the long and short of the code itself. So what we're asking for you on the 16th, we'll be back to see on the 16th. We're going to ask you to adopt the 2006 Wildland Urban Interface Code with the understanding we'll be coming back with a map. But this keeps us in compliance with our participating entity requirements, and it protects the city against loss. The Buckley Draw fire is at $2.9 million is the suppression costs on that. Had that started on Provo City's property and we were not a participating entity, we'd be on the hook for that. So that's what we're going to ask that you do. Now I got a full disclosure, there are a couple other provisions that we want to make you aware of because we don't want you to be blindsided. There is a little bit more stick. Beginning in 2006, property owners who are in the identified wildland urban interface will be charged a fee. We believe it's between $60 and $100 per parcel. That fee will be paid to the county. Part of that fee will be so the county can come and do an assessment of their property. And part of that, the rest of the fee will go to the Wildland Prevention and Mitigation Fund. And so we don't really understand how that's going to work. The county is the ones who are supposed to do the assessments. There may be some interlocal agreements down the road because we have a lot of structures within our city that are gonna fall up into this category. But that's still to be worked out. Now the carrot, the reason this took a long time to work through the legislature, we noticed last year that a lot of property owners who are up in the interface are having their property insurance either exorbitantly increased or being threatened with being dropped altogether. So that the upside of House Bill 48 is it provides protection as communities adopt the code, enforce the code, do the assessment. It provides a level of protection to these homeowners so that as they do what the assessment requires, that the state's going to monitor and make sure that they're not needlessly dropped from insurance programs, or they're going to limit the amount that they can increase their insurance premiums for the homes that are up in these neighborhoods. And I think with that, I will be happy to answer any questions that you've got that I can answer.
Are you going to stick around and present the map in January?
I am not going anywhere, but I will be retired. The Hungarian lady has won the day. She's been fighting for 3 years and she finally won the day. So yes, I will be retiring January 1st, and then Fire Marshal Hubbs will be back with a map. And if he needs, I'll come help him.
Okay, well, I hope that you enjoy that meeting and the fact that you won't have to be here presenting it.
I'll be here on the 16th, but no, I won't be
in January.
Yeah, but I won't be here when the map comes back.
We'll think of you fondly.
Thank you. I will have you. So.
Any other questions for Lynn? Yes, Councillor Bogdan.
So I don't think I ever figured out is it gonna be the county then that's going to go ahead at these new builds and see if people are maintaining their common spaces and whatever?
So new construction will go through the Provo City development process if it's on Provo City property or within the Provo City boundaries. So it'll be Provo City that will be enforcing the WUI code on new builds within Provo City's jurisdiction.
Right, but
It's the county that will be doing the home assessments of their parcels and enforcing the maintenance to a point.
oh, so that's gonna be like a yearly thing? It's not like a one and done thing?
There's still a lot of ambiguity on that. I anticipate that it's going to be not a one and done, but I don't know what this re-inspect schedule is going to be.
And so a $60 fee could be like in perpetuity, like every year,
Yeah, the fee will be charged or assessed every year, that charge.
probably on their property taxes.
Yes, that would be my assumption.
That's what I'm assuming as well. And then they'll be responsible for coming out and making sure that Bill and Harry and Ted are actually pruning their trees and getting all
Yeah, so
the weeds gone and.
the county will be responsible for coming out and just doing a property assessment.
Every year, or every 2 years, every 3 years, whatever they decide.
Yeah, but Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong. The way I remember this, I don't think the county's inspection is for the purpose of determining if the homeowner is in compliance with the code.
So
It's for
risk.
Yeah, it's for the purpose of gathering data that will be put in a report that the insurers can only use as their source for determining what the rates are.
Oh, so like if Bill and Harry and Ted or whatever doesn't comply, then their insurance rates go up. That's the.
It could be because the inspection is gonna say we're not in compliance, then the insurer can look at that report and say, we're gonna raise your rates, but you're not in compliance. If the city had an interest in doing so, it would fall to our normal code enforcement, just like any other part of the code. If someone complained, hey, let's say the neighbor complained because they were worried about their fire risk, then our code enforcement people could go out and say, hey, WUI building code is part of our code and you're not complying with it, so we're gonna fine you.
So it could possibly still cost us money for enforcement.
It could, because it'll be part of our code that, well, yeah.
And then we just follow the current procedures. You give them like 2 weeks to get it under control, otherwise we.
Right, just our
Those fines
standard code enforcement, so it's a little bit weird because it's gonna be probably some coordination between code enforcement and fire marshal, because fire marshal would be the expert on the WUI portion of the code, but it's in the code.
But don't they combine sometimes anyway
Yeah.
for egregious offenders?
Yeah, the insurance company is going to be the primary driver for enforcement. Now, we currently, as part of our wildland urban interface program, offer those home assessments. And we work with property owners who are in what we've identified as the existing WUI to date. We do offer them, we have a mitigation program that they can be a part of. But I think ultimately the insurance company is going to be who drives the enforcement of complying with the requirements of the code.
Thank you.
I'll add one other thing to that, and then maybe I'm overcomplicating it. I apologize if that's what I'm doing, but the statute requires that effective January 1st, we have to adopt the WUI code in order to be able to participate with the state and get reimbursed for our participation. The code itself says the legislative body approves a map as to where it applies. The House Bill 48 does not say when the map must be implemented or that it must match the state's map that determines where the inspections take place. So when the map comes back to you, the recommendations from the fire department may differ from what the state map is with regard to the inspection map, and you have discretion to adopt whatever map you want.
But if we don't, okay, can that come back to bite us?
Well, I mean,
If we don't play well in the sandbox and do something. that they
yeah, so there's two possibilities. One is if you egregiously ignore the state map, then they may come back and pass legislation that says they do have to match. The other potential problem is you could have, I don't think it would be a winning argument, but like, as we often say, people don't have to have winning arguments to file the lawsuit. You could have somebody come back later when their home is destroyed in the fire and say, you told me I wasn't in the interface when I really was, and so it's your fault that I didn't take protective measures.
But that's not a winning argument. So.
No, I don't think that's a winning argument, but yeah, it still takes up resources to fight off sometimes. But anyway, those will all be things to, there's not as much urgency about that because the state map isn't even done yet. What we're trying to do is just meet the deadline of adopting the code itself, and then the map will come later.
But if we don't adopt a map within a reasonable time when we have another fire in the spring, that could come back and fight us, right?
Again, I don't think that's I mean, it's not a liability argument. It could get the state mad at us.
But they would still pay for whatever fire would start on that.
Well, right, because
interface.
the code that the section that says we have to adopt the code in order to participate doesn't say anything about it doesn't say anything about the map. There's, again, I'm not trying to put ideas in your head, but there is nothing that says after you have adopted the code that you actually have to apply it anywhere. Right? I mean, we have in the past at times had zones in our zoning code that don't exist on the map. There's nothing in House Bill 48 at this moment in time that says that once you have adopted the WUI code, it must apply to properties within the city. So, again, not suggesting that, but in answer to your question, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Lynn. We'll
Thank you.
look forward to reviewing this document in advance of our meeting on the 16th.
We'll see you on the 16th. Thank you.
Next, we have an ordinance amending Provo City Code 3.10.050 regarding the authority to settle claims. This will be presented by our Senior Assistant City Attorney, Richard Roberts. Hello, Rich, welcome.
Lynn Schofield reminded me that I owe him lunch from losing the bet. So thank you for letting me follow him. I thought I was off the hook. Great. So this proposed ordinance is fairly routine. These modifications. There's three sort of primary areas. Some of these are stylistic, but if you look in paragraph 4, the majority of those changes in there have already gone into effect. Essentially, under paragraph 4D, it states that every 5 years, based on inflation, these authorized amounts to settle cases will be adjusted. They have already adjusted as of July 1st of this year. And so the dollar amounts that are put in there have been effective for the last, whatever, it's been 5 months. It's not necessary for us to add these changes in. Since we're suggesting other changes, we're suggesting that these would also be modified at this time. Paragraph, the two main points that I just want to talk about are sort of substantive points. Or paragraph 4C is that final change there. So any type of claim that has a value of over $15,000 has required the chief administrative officer and the director of administrative services to approve. We have, and that is required to be submitted to the mayor for approval. There are times where the mayor has and will in the future have conflicts of interest for a variety of reasons. And so we're simply suggesting that to be changed to say mayor or the mayor's designee for approval be changed. As the policy that since I've been in Provo City, as far as I'm aware, going in the back, any claim that exceeds $30,000, the mayor is always involved in as well. And that's been our policy. It doesn't require that under the code, but that's just been the way we've been functioning. The other, the more substantive change is on the, is in the final paragraph, paragraph 5. And it currently says that we'll submit, I'm not sure why it's not showing up on there, a written, and it should say semi-annual. And so we are suggesting to strike the word semi, because that's not what's being done. It's only being done on an annual basis. As far as I've been at Provo City almost 3 years now, it's always been semi-annual. And so for us, it makes sense to make those changes. The others are non-substantive. We get in arguments over will and shall and must, and Brian Jones prevails in those arguments. And so we do what he says. So
Rich, who is that report submitted to?
So that report comes from the mayor's office to city council, as far as I'm aware. Is that correct, Brian?
It is, and at the moment, so we're actually, after Justin's fantastic work on the report on reports, which I probably caused him trauma by mentioning again, we have been submitting a report to you semi-annually, but the way we've been doing it is we send you an annual report, which is a comprehensive report of all of the legal office's activities. And then at the 6-month mark, we send you a spreadsheet that's just an update on just the claims in order to comply with this section. So if that's useful to you, we can continue to do both. If it's not, we can, the claims are included in the annual report. So if there's some benefit that you get updated on the claims at the 6-month mark, that's easy to keep doing. If it's just another piece of paper you get and the annual report of everything is sufficient, then that's a little bit less work for us. However you would.
Well, thanks for Bogdan.
So Brian, why aren't we getting this according to code? Why aren't we getting a 6-month update?
Well, that's what I just said. Every 6 months, we're sending you.
Well, he said we weren't. And so that's why we're changing it to the yearly.
Well, I think that's a misnomer between, maybe Rich wasn't aware that I was sending you the other thing. What he was aware of is that we are sending the comprehensive annual report. We still are sending a 6-month report on settled claims, but it's just on settled claims. It's not on anything else because nothing else is required by the ordinance.
Yeah, I apologize, Counselor. I was misunderstood. I did have that misunderstanding that there was only the one annual report. So,
okay. I think that we don't get enough information as it is. And so I think that keeping it every 6 months is good because then it just keeps us in the loop. I mean, we're not in the loop every month, but we are in the loop every 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it's good to know. That's good information to review and just to know.
Totally fine.
I have nothing else, but
Anything else to present, Rich?
No.
Other comments, questions, input?
I enjoy the reports, but you know, I'm a weirdo.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Rich. So this will also come to us in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. All right. If there's no objection, we'll now recess the municipal council and convene the RDA governing board by unanimous consent.
Right. So our item of RDA business is a presentation regarding the survey area for Lakeview Parkway CRA. This will be presented by Melissa McNally. Hi, there you are, who is our RDA director.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so we kind of talked about this last month, and I wanted to present the amended map that shows just the single portion of a parcel south of Lakeview Parkway. And then it's proposed that we have another map to present So it's proposed that we include the same parcel just south of Lakeview Parkway, and then this other parcel owned by the city that's just south of the Epic Sports Park. In anticipation of possibly providing a hotel or some other amenity that to support airport. And whichever way the RDA board decides, we will include one map or the other for the CRA area. If you would rather not have this parcel included and only the partial parcel, then we will present the other map with the resolution in the evening meeting. Yes.
No, this is just again for the study, for the actual area.
This is just the study area. Mhm.
All right, Bogdan.
The history of that parcel is not good. And have we even settled with the landowner yet?
Settled in what way? I'm not aware of any claim by the landowner.
Well, we built on his property. And so.
Which must have happened with his permission and authorization. It's a settlement. We can't have done it otherwise.
That's not what I'm hearing. That's not what I've heard from development services either. So
Oh, you're talking about like the fence line and stuff?
I'm talking about the complete building.
I think there was, again, we'd need Tara here to answer this. I think, okay. You asked me before offline, I wasn't sure what you were talking about, but yes, I think that there was some construction that was made in error across the property line. Yeah. But that's on this property?
Yes. So. Yes.
Well, isn't this
This
property owned by the
property's
city?
blank. There's nothing here on this parcel. And the parcel you're talking about is where the lift station is currently, and that's not this parcel.
It's right there. Yeah, and
well-
it does not have a good look to it. I really do object to this, to anything south of the parkway. And especially if we haven't settled that. It
But-
just doesn't look good. It looks like we're trying.
Brian, is there actually ongoing or pending litigation regarding that matter? If
No,
there is,
no.
there's not.
No.
Okay.
There's
so-
ongoing discussions about it, but there's been no claim filed and there's no lawsuit filed.
Okay, so that doesn't need to be a closed meeting discussion. We can.
I mean, if someone here knows that a lawsuit is being threatened, we could classify it as litigation, imminent litigation, and talk about it in closed meeting, but I have never been informed of any pending litigation.
All right.
So I object to that. For the reasons I stated before, and for this reason too, it looks like took land, even though it was an accident, to move our stuff.
But we need to confirm if it's on this, what's laid out here or not.
It does look like it on the map, I'll just be honest. It looks like it's on that parcel, but I mean, I'm looking at it from, my phone, so I don't know.
Kevin, can you pull up GIS?
This is the park, which is the green section. That's the road coming down from the park.
Other than the potential lift station issue and board member Bogdan's concerns, is there any other RDA board input to which of these maps is more appropriate to adopt for the purposes of the study area?
Well, Rachel, I would just weigh in and say, I too would want to make sure that we have that cleared up. I think we ought to tap the brakes and actually find out if there are open issues there that should be addressed. I'm sensitive to the concerns that Becky's raising.
Okay. Yeah, because this ends up being a matter of optics. Designating as a study area doesn't actually change anything.
It's still, I'm no.
And
But
it
would you
doesn't,
be opposed to including those parcels no matter what because of the history?
There's, yeah, and this is the most egregious in my book of all those parcels south of the Parkway. This one right here. I mean, it was told to me by several people, because the city did acquire quite a bit of property. And I'm gonna go with Graves. Graves was really, really good to me. And he's not, I don't think he had the skills to negotiate it well. But, when we built that road, we had to do an insane amount of wetlands mitigation. It wasn't a 1-to-1, it was like a 1 to, we don't have public works in here, it was 1 to something, and I think there's 80 acres, is there 80 acres of wetlands mitigation that's there? And so when I talked to the Army Corps of Engineers clear back in like 06 or 04 or whatever, they were trying to debate on where they wanted that road to be, because if it was further south, it would cut off all of those property lines and there would be no building south of it. And somehow it ended up north. And that's why the road curves the way it does, to try to avoid those sensitive lands to the south. So I think that the land grab that the west side sees it as was actually something that was more innocent in trying to protect what's south of there. But they saw it as the city trying to make a buck off of hotels and restaurants and whatever south of the Parkway, because we do own quite a bit of the land south of the Parkway. So I am opposed to that land being a part of the study, yes. And then with everything that's gone on there, I'm opposed to that as well.
It's an interesting thing, because for me, part of the question is, how do we adapt to changing circumstances and move forward in productive ways? And how much do we keep ourselves bound by the discontents of the past? And I think we have to have strong sensitivity to the people who are in the area, who've been there, who've contributed to our city. But at some point, because conditions have changed so much, we need to be able to make new decisions.
I don't think now is the time to do that, especially with the way that the other situation has happened. The optics aren't good. The sentiment won't be well taken. There might be in 20 years a different sentiment to that portion, but now is not that time.
Yeah, and also looking at these properties, they are very much impacted. You know, you can see that they've been rolled over in different ways. This is not clean farmland or pristine wetlands. These are areas that are clearly already very, very affected and are ripe for redevelopment.
So isn't putting it in the study area a reason? I mean, aren't these concerns a reason to put it in the study area, in the sense that if it's possible, for one, it then allows us to clear up a lot of these issues. It allows them to get aired. It allows us to study them in more detail. I feel like these are all very valid questions, but it seems like that's what the study area is for, is so that we can study it. And if we decide that it's not adequate or it's not appropriate for these reasons, when we get more clarity on some of the history and the details, then you're in a stronger position to make the decision. But I'd vote to include it for that reason, so that there can be that kind of transparency and clarity and study.
Yeah,
I mean, we're just not making a decision on it.
Right. I'd also like to, and I think we talked about this at the last meeting when you originally presented the potential study areas, is to look at other kind of conservation and protections that we can do on the south side, especially for the other city-owned parcels that are more in kind of the middle of that stretch.
I'm a strong no.
Okay.
I am a very strong. Like I said, this is because of the recent activity that has happened on this parcel. I'm a very strong. And I don't know that this has been, when you look at that little stretch, it's still in on county records that is owned by not us. So I think county records is like, what, 6 weeks behind? So I don't know that this has had a resolution. And you even look up to the roadway up above it, the roadway is still owned by that individual, not us.
Okay, but what does this mean? Like, if we don't include it, doesn't that mean that those landowners could never make use of the benefits of an RDA area?
Yes.
I know, but if it's not the study, they can never get it. So you are eliminating their options,
Their options being the city.
the landowner's options.
Oh, you're saying if.
If they're not
ultimately it's
involved,
resolved
if they're not involved in the study, they can never be part of the RDA area.
Well, I mean, this parcel, these parcels are city owned, right? So we would be excluding the city unless the part that's in, that Becky is saying is owned by somebody else.
The strip to the side.
Yeah, it's that one, that whole strip. And they have. Right now.
And I guess the question is, Melissa, does the map include that strip, or does it only include the two parcels to the left of the strip?
It only includes the city-owned parcel left of the strip.
Well, I would be in favor of including these in part because I've heard so many times that we want more commercial, more varied commercial on the west side, and having it right next to the Epic Sports Park and the airport seem to be really useful places to have another one of our commercial nodes. And it may be very helpful to have this as a tool as we're doing RFPs or asking people to look at developing this to accomplish that city goal that we've had. Is there any other board discussion on this? Craig, do you have input? Additional input?
No additional input.
Okay, yeah, Hoban, Travis.
So I guess last time when we talked about this, I wasn't aware this has something to do with Walmart potentially, right? Or am I just the only one that's out of the loop, or did I miss that?
No,
I don't think in the last discussion it was even mentioned that this had something to do with Walmart, but so I kind of felt a little bit like, oh yeah, but there was a reason behind what we were doing, but it wasn't really articulated. So I just want to understand the Walmart connection to all of this.
If we can go back to the map.
I have more in the slideshow and.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I did provide the draft of the plan that did mention those things.
Okay.
That was included in the packet last time.
For last time it was included in the pack. Okay.
Yes,
That's
it
on me
was.
then.
And-
I apologize.
And but I do want to address that today so that we're all on the same page as far as that goes. The reasons that we're looking at this area specifically to create a community reinvestment area, so that we might incentivize some parcels. So the parcels we're looking at to incentivize possibly are this one, and it is anticipated that the Walmart is going to go right here. And then this strip of land that is that little parcel south of Lakeview Parkway. And the reasons for that is because they are incredibly hard to develop because of floodplain issues and other things. The other parcel we're looking at incentivizing is this little strip right here that's just south of the Epic Sports Park, so that we can provide hospitality, restaurants, and other things like that to support things on that side of Provo and close to the airport. And then just to go over, so for Walmart specifically, again, the reasons that we're looking at a possible incentive is the cost of development for just the Walmart portion of that parcel. And then the extraordinary project costs just for the Walmart portion of that parcel is what we were looking at specifically, right? Because regular development, sure, everyone bears that. But because of the location and the amount of fill that needs to be brought in to bring it out of the floodplain, and that's all of these costs are associated with that. So they are spending money on some public road improvements, storm drain and water extensions that will all benefit that parcel. So that's why we're looking at incentivizing that particular portion.
So the study is meant to basically let us know what the considerations are with
Yes.
this and what it
Yes.
would look like and.
Yeah.
Catrice is next and then Ogden Council.
Do we have any idea what the projected sales tax revenue will be of the Walmart?
We have some projections. We're not prepared to share that today. We will be bringing it to the next study session when we'll be bringing you all the information, the project plan. If this resolution is moved forward, then the project plan and other things will move forward at that point. And we'll be prepared to present all of that to you. But until this is actually adopted by resolution, we're not.
We do have some information though about how much we're losing to Orem and Springville that we would anticipate being able to recapture by having it here.
We will have all of that information. Cody's been really great working with Placer AI and getting figures on like Councilor Whipple said, what we're leaking from Provo to Springville and Orem. So we will have those numbers for you, Councilor McKay.
Is it possible for the board to get some of that spreadsheet information now?
We anticipate having it to you by the end of the week.
Okay.
So you have plenty of time to review before we meet again.
All right. Yes, Becky Bogdan.
Just so this 80,000 and then the other 10,000 or 10 million, 80 million, 10 million. Is that what Walmart wants to recoup from us?
No. Oh, no. It is
It's
not.
$90 million?
No, it is not. It's not.
Because
this is just to show you what the cost of development is just for the Walmart, and then to break out the extraordinary costs. That if they were developing in some other part of the city, it's not anticipated that they would incur the additional $10 million.
So what
just to give you an idea of why we're entertaining the idea of an incentive.
So where did this all start from? Did this start from us? Did this start from Walmart? Is Walmart asking for this? I mean, I'm confused on how we got here. It was a joint decision because we do want to have more retail in the city. We do want to have more sales tax revenue, and we see this as producing quite a bit. So did we reach out to Walmart, or did Walmart reach out to us?
I'm not sure on that part. I know that it was part of the negotiations when we were negotiating with Smith's originally to come onto the west side, and then negotiations started at some point with Walmart, and I wasn't included in those. That predates me stepping into this role. I don't know if administration can speak to that, but
yeah, because those negotiations were going on for years before we got to this point. Are you able to give us a little bit more information on that?
Not sure how much I can say. Don't know, Cody, how much can we legally say, other than we've been working on this for years, and it did kind of roll over after the Smiths fell through at the last minute.
Yeah, that's accurate.
I know his presentation on the 16th is going to be very point specific of numbers and details and what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because I'm just concerned about when's enough. I mean, we have offered them $1 million. The property owners want 150 for rental units. And then we get slammed with this. And I'm like, stop. Because I was under the impression that this and this, and they don't even have in there, I'm not even seeing the trail system that's connected, right? I mean, currently,
well, that's
they're
not like this phase.
Right.
We're not at that.
But they are negotiating stuff like this,
right.
Rachel.
And I can discuss with you what things that we have negotiated so far with Walmart. So in the development agreement, which is still undergoing things, but this is what we can tell you that the city's asking for. So the building for the housing portion will not be developed, will not be issued until the footings are in place for Walmart. All of the utility and road improvements and on-site will be paid for by the developer. They're going to take care of those costs. There will be a limit on the number of certificates of occupancy for the anticipated townhome portion. And if deadlines are not met for construction, then the zoning that they are going to be asking for will revert back to commercial. And I do know that they are asking for the trail to be included in the development agreement. I think that portion has not been settled yet, but I know it is being discussed. The staff is very much aware of that. That's what the neighborhood wants to see. And so we're pushing to make sure that that is included.
So currently, because this has come up in planning commission, currently they're proposing the trail that's going from east-west. And UDOT has that paved portion that's always been there that goes north-south on the eastern end. And it used to connect to the walking overpass. But since the Lakeview Parkway Trail came in, they took out the ramp. And I don't know that they're maintaining the asphalt anymore. So you would need something on that eastern end and something that would connect.
And I believe that's in the works. I can't say specifically where that is, but.
Yeah,
Well,
and then a larger sidewalk that would be in front of the Walmart, because that Lakeview Parkway is a 45-mile-an-hour road, and a 6-foot sidewalk is not gonna accommodate the bike traffic, and the bike traffic's not gonna go across the street to go to the Walmart. So you need some kind of path there that would accommodate pedestrian bike traffic.
But to get back to the issue here, it is to define the study area map. And it is important to know that part of the reason that we need to define that study area now is because of Walmart. And the numbers that we've got for the extraordinary development costs for Walmart are the but-for justification that will be used later in doing any sort of agreement for these revenues and these incentives that we would give. That's a little bit ahead of where we need to be right now. Right now, we need to decide which study area map we are going to adopt so that we can then move forward. Both of them contain these Walmart parcels, so that's good. So if I understand correctly, Melissa, please correct me if I'm wrong. The only question right now that we need to give you an answer on is if we do study area map 1.
Yeah.
Or 2, which
Right.
includes the parcels south of the Epic Sports Park and the Lakeview Parkway.
That's correct.
And if we were to do the second map, that little incentive area that you were talking about next to the sports park, would that also expand into those ones south of the parkway, or would we keep it just at that little tiny corner?
Will you say that again? I'm not sure I'm understanding.
If we adopt this map, so previously for the areas you had said, no,
Okay,
I
sorry.
left it.
Second now. Okay.
You had said that this little corner
Yeah.
is one that we are looking at.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
If we adopt this map number 2, would we have these areas south of the parkway in addition to that little
Yes.
corner? Okay.
But the city also owns 5 acres on the other side of Epic. What is it? Epic Lane, Epic Way, Epic whatever.
Yeah, and I think the acres that the 5 acres you're talking about are that's where we're anticipating the hotel, and
To the east. So it's like,
yeah.
It's like right here.
no,
Right here.
Well, that's the stubs problem.
no, they're above the stubs. When I was looking at the map the other day, there's like 5 acres that we own. So right before you hit 550 south.
You
think
Okay.
north of the park?
So not here,
Yeah.
not this portion,
No,
but up higher.
yeah,
Yeah.
down a little bit, no, over. Is that, maybe it's up where you were at, is that all stubs right there? I thought some of it was.
Kevin, come here. That little triangle. Yeah, just north of it. This one? Nope, this one, that right there. The.
Woohoo. All right.
Those the 500 acres.
You got it?
Okay.
Okay.
I think that was public words.
All right.
With that.
Catrice McKay has another comment.
I think Rachel is right that we need to just figure out the study, do the study. The study does not require us to do anything.
Right.
I think we'd be very cognizant of what's happened on the west side, and like all these things will make, to me, the more information I get will help me with the bigger picture.
Right.
Like I need a lot more information.
Right, exactly.
So I feel like I've not enough information. But the study isn't binding in any way.
No.
So I see no harm in doing a study to get more information to make the best decision. But I need a lot more information,
Right, I understand.
just so everyone knows.
Brian,
Yeah.
we need to do a motion to direct our director which map we're using.
That would be helpful, in the sense that then come tonight, when you're actually voting on, again, just the survey area, there's already a map attached to it for the implied motion to apply to. You don't have to do that now. You could continue the debate and make a substitute motion this evening, but it makes this evening go a little bit easier if the right map is already attached.
Okay, well, I will entertain a motion because it needs to be one or the other.
I'll move that we accept the second map.
Okay, is there a second?
Which one's the second map?
Can you go?
The second one includes the little chunk south of this
Yeah,
That's
this
the-
is,
that
yeah.
includes more
Map number
area
2.
as opposed to less.
slight
Yes.
more area, yes. So we have a motion.
Okay, so I'll make a substitute motion that we include the previous map, the first one that we had voted to exclude everything south of the Parkway. So the other map.
So map number
Okay,
1.
so now we are on a substitute motion, which is map number 1. Is there a second for the substitute motion?
I would second that.
Okay, we will now do a vote on the substitute motion, which is to adopt this first map that does not include the area south of Lakeview Parkway, south of the Epic Sports Park. Discussion.
Yeah. If we exclude this piece, is there a reason in the future we couldn't do another study and include that piece at a later point?
We could, it's just it's more difficult to do it after and include it back into the area.
So
But
we
it
can
could be
always
done.
we
But
can
it could be done.
and is it
Yeah.
easier to remove it?
It is easier to
Way
remove
easier.
it than it is to add it back in.
So that's a good argument for keeping it.
Any more discussion on the substitute motion? All right.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I'm sensitive to Becky's concerns as well, but I do feel like I need more information that I think the second study and survey area would provide before making a complete decision.
All right. If there's no further board discussion, we will take a vote on the substitute motion, which would be to adopt proposed map number 1 for the study area. Board member Garrett,
No.
McKay,
So
Christensen,
No.
Handley,
No.
Bogdan,
Yes.
Hoban.
No.
Woodbull is no. That motion fails by a vote of 6-1. Yes. All right, we will now go back to the original motion. Is there a second for the original motion offered by board member Handley that we adopt the second map? Is it even necessary if we've eliminated the first one? But anyway, let's do it. So is there a second?
I'll provide a second.
Okay. And then is there discussion on this motion? Malia. Is this a procedural point?
I'm not a board member. No, just, since the reason for adopting this is to find out more information, it might be helpful to provide RDA staff with clear direction, and we can either do that in this meeting or later on specific points that we want to study about the parcels.
Let's
That might
do
be-
that after we do this
Yeah.
motion. Oh,
Just a no
okay,
for the board.
all right. Good. So let's vote on this motion now. Board Member McKay. Christensen.
I'm sorry, we're we're talking about voting on accepting the second map
Yes.
as the target. I would say yes, and I have concerns about that parcel we've been talking about, but I'm good with studying it and finding out more.
Okay, perfect. Handley,
Yes.
Bogdan,
No.
Hoban,
Yes.
Whipple is yes, and Garrett.
Yes.
Okay, that one passes by a vote of 6-1. We will now entertain a motion regarding instructions to the RDA staff about what we would like to have included in the topic of study here. Would that include the status of the property, the lift station, any potential agreements that were made with the neighbors? What else? Wetland mitigation? What else are we concerned about?
They need to make sure that they settle on that parcel.
Okay. So potential property disputes.
Those need to be settled.
Okay. Any other
Well, I don't
concerns?
think settled, I think we need to understand them first, right?
So understand the potential property disputes and
I mean,
seek
because
for
if there
resolution.
is some dispute, then that could take a significant amount of time. I think we just want to understand all the nuances, right?
Okay.
I mean, from my perspective.
All right. Are we concerned about wetlands?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially where we have something in the thing trying to protect all these wetlands.
Perfect. Okay, so I have 3 points. Potential property disputes, understanding those, the history and future implications, potential resolution of potential property disputes, and understanding the wetland status and what should be done to help conserve and protect these areas. Any other points that we want to have? Yes.
Well, I think we're getting a presentation on this, but just understanding all this in the context of
Economic
the
development.
Walmart piece and economic development, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
It seems
know
like
if
that
that's
should go without saying, but
It
yeah.
should, yeah.
Yes.
I'm just saying. Yeah, should go without saying.
I also want
right.
to see what's that gonna do to McCord's? Is that all of McCord's property or some of that John Hinckley's property?
So how this affects adjacent
It's
landowners?
mostly what? Well, it looked like McCord's own. I mean, Hinckley owns. It's up further. This is Hinckley, right? Oh, this is McCord's.
Door neighbor to the.
Farther south.
Oh, see, that's Hinckley, right? And then up is McCord's. So what has she got on that western end? Is that Hinckley's and McCord's?
Okay. All right. So here's my list of things that I think we want RDA staff to address with us. Everybody listen closely and make sure I got everything on this. So history of potential and past property disputes, potential resolutions for such disputes, information about the wetlands, how to protect, mitigate, all of that. More information about the Walmart, other economic development opportunities and hopes for the area. And then how this will affect the landowners that are within and adjacent to the study area. Is that what we want?
Yes, because. Yeah, especially of our ag group. I've heard change the conversation to how do we help these guys stay in business? McCord's does bring in
Okay.
tax revenue into the city. I mean, they're not
So
just
maybe
a
one thing
farmer.
that we want them to look at is how we can work with the agricultural community as economic development within this area.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jeff, that's what he does for a living, right? He sells at the farmers markets. And to hinder, and Hinckley's have been farming for years and they anticipate farming for years.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great message to send to them is how we're going to help them achieve their goals. Because to me, we can't just be giving money to billionaires. These
Right.
people have the right to farm their land. and not have to worry about the city coming and accidentally building on it or taking it for a road, or, you know, we need to value the
Well, we
history
should
that's there.
incentivize it.
I assume that everything you study on this has to be in harmony with the general plan and with the
Yes.
conversations that have been ongoing with conservation easements and open space. And so the agricultural committee or commission should also be consulted. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like you wouldn't want to make any decisions that, you know, go against any of the proposed.
Yeah.
Balancing that we're trying to do with the west side. So I agree. That's all very important.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree, George.
Okay, Craig,
Agreed.
did you have additional comment?
No, I was just gonna say thank you, George. That captures it nicely.
All right, so I now have 7 points. Malia, do you believe this needs to be by motion, or have I gone through it enough that we got it? Okay, I had my 7 points. They will be in the minutes for you. Okay, thank you very much. If there's no objection, we will now adjourn the RDA Governing Board and reconvene as the Provo Municipal Council by unanimous consent.
Thank you, Board Chair Rachel. Before we consider a motion to close the meeting, Brian, we do have this meal with the Youth City Council at 4:30. The item on the agenda, is it time sensitive, or could it be, could it be discussed in 5 to 10 minutes?
I don't believe that it's time sensitive. I do believe that it could be discussed in 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Let's see how quickly we can reconvene.
Okay, I'll consider a motion then to close the meeting.
Okay, for this week, the topic is regarding reasonable litigation. There's a litigation matter ongoing. We have an update for you to ask an opinion question about how to go forward.
All right, I moved that we close the meeting.
Second,
Oh, second.
Councillor Bogdan, a motion to close the meeting.
Yes.
Hoban,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
Garrett, yes. Rachel
Yes.
and George.
Yes.
And Craig.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Let's break some land speed records here, people.